Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the work session of the Mayor and Council. Today is Monday, April 17th, 2023, and this utility work session is designed for us to go over some healthcare numbers, which are across the general fund and the enterprise funds. We'll also discuss the real estate tax rate for the general fund, and then we'll lead into the enterprise funds. Before I get too far, I do want to introduce a few guests that we have this evening. From the Boy Scouts Troop 261. The three gentlemen in the back are going for their communications merit badge, and we had a brief discussion in the office a few minutes ago. So part of that is attending a public meeting, so they're here with us this evening to observe. I let them know that it is a rather long meeting tonight, so they're welcome to duck out at any point. But just go ahead and stand, gentlemen. We have Colt, we have Jonathan, and we have Cash. So thank you for joining us. Before we, now we can get into our utility fund work session. So for the opening statement this evening, we will we'll hear a lot about the healthcare numbers, and thankfully Kelsey and our folks over at Dealey helped get the numbers. I'm sorry. I'm still not used to one. Okay, so the folks at One Digital helped get our numbers into a competitive rate, and then we'll get into our real estate tax discussion, which I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. And then we're going to go over and discuss the water fund and our electric fund. So I want to thank the council for attending those department level meetings, and our staff for helping prepare this. So we'll move into the One Digital presentation. And you are not Chris.
We have Zach Hall. All right, good evening. Tonight we have Zach Hall here with One Digital. Chris was not able to make it tonight, and Zach thankfully stepped in to help us out here. So we met on Thursday via Zoom and went through all this together with Chris to make sure we're all on the same page. So he's here to answer the more technical questions for you, and I will I'll go through the presentation here. So I know it's a little, scroll up a tiny bit so the screen's, there you go, sorry. So initially when CARE First came back, they came back at a 15% increase. And I had mentioned during our last meeting that, Chris was like, I'm not going to do this back and forth. I just want your best and final. We're trying to get this on our next agenda. And after that, they came back at 5.5%. So big difference there, which is an annual increase of $48,000 from current. And this includes the early renewal, multi-line discounts, so the dental and vision, and then the loyalty credit in there, because we have been with CARE First, I believe this is our 5th year. You know offhand?
I do, if you give me one moment. I can do the math for it.
4 or 5 years.
Sure.
So yeah, we got some rate relief there. And then, so that came back, like I said, at 5.5%, leaving everything the exact same as it is now, which is nice for our employee group because they have established doctors, established, care, and it's good for them to just remain the same. So, and it does not, this is keeping the HRA the same as well, so no changes to any of that. And then, I'm sorry. No, it's like, sorry. Yeah, thanks. So then once you factor in the rate relief with the HRA, it actually, I was telling Zach, I kind of wish this was formatted a little bit differently because the 4.36%, Chris was going to give you guys a couple options just showing that if the employees took on a small portion of the increase and then the town did, 4.36% is what he ran that out, and I'll get to that in a minute. But really, if the town picks up the full increase and doesn't put any on the employee, it's a 5.08% increase. Again, this is factoring in that HRA. It gets a little confusing on why the percentage would go from 5.5 to 5.08, but this is with the HRA factored in and the utilization. So we're looking at a 5.08% increase if the town takes on the full amount. do you want to?
Yeah, I can speak to a little bit of the confusing part. So why, when we factor in the health reimbursement arrangement, so that's that deductible funding that we provide for our members, as well as some co-insurance funding after they have that little gap there in the middle of their shared responsibility in the middle. Why we see, when we factor in that health reimbursement arrangement, why we see that renewal increase come down a little bit is because our HRA is running quite well right this second. So we're setting a standard utilization rate that we have maintained over the last couple years. So effectively, our HRA budget has stayed the same. We have a 0% increase, if you will, for our HRA budget. So when we factor in a 0% increase, it lowers and increase. If we're increasing all of our dollars, putting more money on the table, premium dollars plus HRA dollars, and then factoring in a 0% increase on the HRA, it'll actually bring the overall renewal increase down a little bit. So again, we need to keep in mind that those are just projections. That utilization is a pretty healthy number, though. We like to think that, whatever folks day in and day out had going on last year, knock on wood, barring some kind of big, catastrophic thing, God forbid, that would have happened to somebody, that most folks are going to live their lives the way they do, and more or less the same money that we spent last year day in and day out will be the same money we spent this year day in and day out. So we feel comfortable, based on trend, not only, in the world, but also specifically here at the town, keeping our HRA utilization percentages the same.
Yeah.
What you said.
Yeah. So next we'll get into dental, and I will get into some other carriers as well, but if we stick with Care First, we get the dental relief with the medical plan as far as the multi-line, but we also would see a 1% decrease in dental insurance this year, and that is fully funded by the employee, but it's nice that, they get a little bit of a rate relief there. Overall, that annual average really isn't it. Family plan to an individual, it's $41 for a family, $9 annually for an employee. So it's nothing huge, but it's a little something. So down 1% on that. And same with vision. We are getting the multi-line discount to the medical, but we're also seeing a 1% decrease on that. Again, that savings varies from $5.46 annually to $1.82 annually. Again, not much, but it is down a little bit, and that is also fully funded by the employee. A couple other things we looked at. Legit. Legit has through local government insurance trust, it is actually Cigna, but they are partnered with Legit to offer a plan. On the surface, it looks good, negative 5.22% decrease. So an annual projected savings of about $48,000. But Care First, Legit requires a 2-year contract, and there's no rate guarantee on year 2. They said that the maturity would be approximately 15% in year 2, so we might save now, but next year we'd be looking at, Chris said, it'd probably more likely be in the 12 to 15% range, but once you factor all that in, it might not be. Nothing is guaranteed. They asked what would it take to get you here. 2 things I want to address. One, Cigna's network is not as strong on the Eastern Shore as Care First. We noticed that last year when we looked at this, particularly with mental health and chiropractic care. Those were the 2 major impacts. There was really not much here for employees in those 2 factors, but also some of the smaller practices that we see a lot here on the Eastern Shore weren't participating with Cigna. So that was something to keep in mind. The 2-year contract, they don't have terminal claim liability. It's not included in this. I'll let him explain that one.
Sure. So a couple things about Legit. At the end of the day, I think that Kelsey did a good job explaining our position on Legit. And it's the same thing we talked about last year, was that Legit is absolutely doable for us. They will make this work for us in year 1. It's just the thing that if we want to be serious about moving to Legit, we would be doing that for its long-term benefits. It would be being part of the local government trust and moving to that self-funded model, which have merits, and we can talk about the merits of self-funding versus a fully insured product like you have right now. But it would not likely be any immediate savings or anything like that. So when you start to factor that in, Does that philosophy of moving over to the trust and getting on board with that model, does that outweigh, member satisfaction right now with CareFirst, Blue Cross Blue Shield? That's kind of the conversation that we would need to have if we want to explore this a little bit more, because there are, like Kelsey was just talking about, that terminal claim liability, some other factors in there that when we move to that self-funded model that we need to start considering. Terminal claim liability, or TLO, is something that isn't represented in this illustration right here, and it's a projected cost of another potentially $120,000. And basically what this is, it's pre-funding with a self-funded model. Our insurance rates that we pay every month go towards paying the network rental to Cigna, paying the admin fees, paying commission, but the most of that money goes towards paying the claims day in and day out. We're taking some of that rate, we're putting it into a bucket, so if someone goes to the doctor and submit a claim, that we have money to pay for it. If all of a sudden this time next year we say, you know what, we don't like this legit thing, we're out. What do? Because now I went to the doctor on June 30th and didn't get a bill until August 1st, but we haven't collected any money because we're no longer with Legit. What happens? That claim isn't covered anymore. So the terminal claim liability would be a pre-funding of a set amount of dollars to say that if we cancel this plan, we would allow claims to run out for 3 months, 6 months, just in case. So again, maybe something we don't need to have, or maybe something that we could kind of rein in a little bit if we were going, full force into this Legit model, because we know that we're going to renew with them year after year after year after year. But looking at it, giving it kind of a test run, that would be something that we want to consider, and again, just kind of take a look at a little bit more closely.
Yeah, and it's not that, we're not recommending Legit today, but it's not that we would not consider them in the future. I just think until the Cigna network is a little bit stronger down here, I really don't think it's something we want to put our employees in the position where they are having to kind of start fresh with maybe a different doctor, something like that. So, and like I said, with the mental health and the chiropractic too, it's virtually like non-existent over here on the Eastern Shore. That is something we saw last year and we looked at again this year. So Chris did confirm that those are still very weak areas here. I think one of them, can't remember which one it was, the closest in-network facility was, I want to say it was like Cambridge or something. And we don't want to have to worry about employees worrying about that. So, but it's not something that's completely out. It's really up to you guys at the end of the day. But Chris factored in, about a 12 to 15% increase in year 2, and thought, not including that terminal claim liability if we were to ever get out of that network. But he said overall in those 2 years, maybe we'd be looking at an overall savings of, about 0.92%. But again, it's really no guarantee. Chris said if they could come back and say year 2 we guarantee a 7% increase off of the current, he said it'd be a no-brainer. Let's do it. He said, but when you're looking at that around probably at least 15, he said it's really not something that he would recommend. So something. It's really up to you guys, like I said, at the end of the day, but I think until they have a stronger network here, it's not something I would recommend at this time. But, and then I do want to also let you know that we will get to ICHRA, but we did not, United Healthcare declined. They said they're not going to be competitive. They're not going to put in a proposal. Aetna said that they're not in any shape ready right now to make a proposal. We are kind of on the timeline, so I don't know how much time we're willing to wait for Aetna. And then Cigna Independent, so separate from Legit, said the same thing, that they're not really ready to put in a proposal at this time. So again, I'm not sure how much time we have to wait for those things as far as the budget, but Chris did say we have, we have our information out to them. Once they get it back, if something is earth-shattering, he will let us know, but he said that right now both of them have said they're not ready to pull that information together. So.
And likely, as far as waiting for the marketing results from Aetna and Cigna, we're within the 90-day mark now, so I would wager that we probably have them before the end of this month, so probably within the next 2 weeks. Again, if anything was earth-shattering with them, and again, it would come down to, again, network philosophy, cost, a lot of different things there. But if something was really standing out, looking like a good option, we'll make sure to have it to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, Chris said if he really needed to, and I told him obviously we don't want to make somebody come back a second time, but if something came back where he felt that it was worth proposing to you guys, that he would try to come to our next council meeting if it was something that he thought was worth it. So The next slide, again, this is if we were to stick with Care First, if the employer absorbs 100% of that increase, which is an additional $3,973 a month, it's an overall increase to the town of 5.08%. We originally budgeted 10, and then we bumped it down to 5.5 when we met with Chris initially, and now based on if the town were to absorb the whole amount, 5.08% increase. If we did a share, I'm not sure why we picked 4.36%, but we were just trying to run it to show you like it'd be a break even, 4.3%, 36% on the employee, and 4.36% on the town. You can see the employer increase would then go to 34.08, and the employee would see a average monthly increase, like it says, that would be broken up between all the employees. So I actually ran the numbers, we'll get to them on the next slide too. And then he also gave one other examples, if the employee took on 6% and the employer did the 4.09, and he said he can adjust those if you guys felt there was something else you wanted to see, but these are just kind of what he ran it with to start. As you can see, 2019 costs are in the one top left corner, and then right under that we've had these costs for the employee per pay for payroll deductions in FY21, FY22, and FY23. So we have not seen an increase since FY21, but you know, that's up to you guys at the end of the day. So here's where it goes to the 4.36% increase to both the employer and employee. I ran those numbers annually. The employee would see an increase of we'll just round up to $27 a year if we went with this. The employee and spouse would be $154 a year, employee child $140 a year, and family $222 a year. So that is an option for you guys to consider. Obviously, as an employee advocate here, I don't recommend any increases, but at the end of the day, it's up to you guys. And then, like I said, Chris ran it at a 6% increase to the employee as well, giving the employer 4.09. And I do have those numbers as well. The employee, and I can send these to you guys, I calculated them today, but the employee would see an annual increase of $37, employee spouse $212, employee child $192, and family about $305 annually. So again, those are up to you at the end of the day, but these are just a couple options that Chris pulled together. Let's see. But if someone is on all three, the dental, vision, and medical, obviously they're still seeing an increase regardless of which scenario we go with, but there is a slight increase or decrease for the dental and vision, which does help at the end of the day. And then ICHRA. This is the one that I don't like. I feel like it's very challenging. It's just a challenging concept because again, they run on a January to December timeframe, so that is one thing. We would have to get like 6-month insurance from another carrier kind of in the meantime.
So we could move the ICHRA effective July 1st, and we'd have a short plan year from July 1st to December 31st, and then our plan year would start over again January to January, and then January to December, and then going forward we'd renew, correct, January 24, and then again January 25.
And how ICHRA works, it's available to any employer regardless of size. We cannot essentially stabilize those costs. I don't know if I'm saying that properly there, but every employee would have their own cost. It would be based on the individual's plan. I could have a family of 4 with 2 young children, and I may only pay $54 per pay, but someone could have 2 adults and 2 teenage children, and they could be looking at $400 per pay. It's based on each individual in your family, and we've typically seen with this trend is the younger the family, the less expensive it is. But every employee would be paying a different rate. The only way to stabilize that, which we'll get to, I'll get to that in a minute, but basically every single person would have their own plan, and therefore it's a lot more work on it administratively. So between myself and One Digital, it's not like a group plan. Every single person would have individual coverage. It's a very weird set up. I
So we-
hate explaining it.
So to give ICRA its credit, this is a real option for us. It's the
Yes.
best option for us here today. Maybe not. But you know, we would do everything we can to make it feel like a near group solution to your employees. They would still have open enrollment, they'd still get a regular payroll deduction, they'd still have a Blue Cross Blue Shield card in their pocket. But to Kelsey's point, yes, the administration of it is a little bit different. I think that worse is a strong word. You know, from our side, there would be administrative fees that you would pay to kind of make it feel as close to a group plan as you have. You would get one consolidated bill. But that bill, instead of saying, you know, Zach and Kelsey are two employees that each pay $400 regardless of our age, it would say, you know, Zach's a 50-year-old employee who pays $700 and Kelsey's a 28-year-old employee who pays $400, and we'd be listed on the same bill right next to each other, all aggregated out to
Same coverage.
equal our grand total.
Yeah.
So instead of moving from right now, you know, me and Kelsey being two employees who pay the same amount for our insurance regardless of our age and our family makeup, we at the administrative level can simply just do a flat dollar contribution towards the employee's insurance, whereas moving to the age-banded rates through the ICRA, it would become a percentage of that. You know, we pay 70% of the individual rate to make everybody, you know, to be even Steven there, but, you know, 70% of $100 is, you know, less than 70% of $500, for example. So, you know, the costs are variable from employee to employee, family to family.
Yeah.
You
It's
totally lost me with this.
it's a very
Yeah,
great plan.
so put most simply, what ICRA is instead of us having the group plan through Care First, Blue Cross Blue Shield at the town, we would break apart the group plan, and all of our employees would go, again, at its most simple, buy their own health insurance plan through their home state's exchange marketplace. The town would then pay for a portion of it.
Okay.
It would walk, talk, and feel like a regular insurance plan because the town pays their portion for me, and the rest of my portion comes out of my paycheck. The town foots the entire bill to Care First, just like they do now. But the reason why we would move to an ICRA would be if we were continuously getting big increases year after year after year. Instead of having our rates based right this second as an employer with 51 lives or more, you guys are 52 right this second, with 51 lives or more, half of your rate makeup is all your other groups of a similar composition in the state of Maryland, and half of it is your own risk. That's what determines your renewal increase with Care First. If we were seeing that we were very risk adverse right this second, we could then break apart the town of Berlin plan, move everybody to the individual marketplace where we would likely see much lower rates. And year after year, the likelihood of having lower renewal increases because instead of having our risk consolidated right here, it'd be spread out the entire state of Maryland.
I think it was based on age. Dean and I would break the budget on that.
Well, and Chris was saying that in order to,
And not to guess anyone's age, so that's a good point though. If you were Medicare eligible over 65, we would move you over to Medicare. So that would be, you know, a requirement under the ICRA because as a 65-plus-year-old member, you wouldn't be able to get an individual plan.
yeah.
We've always referred to the ICRA plan as an emergency,
Yeah.
in case of
100%.
emergency plan.
It is
Absolutely.
something I think that eventually most people will end up switching to, but I think we're still far off from that when I say eventually.
I think so too.
Yeah, but, and Chris was saying that in order to essentially, like I said, you can't stabilize rates, you could just pay more of the employee per cost share of that. And he said at the end of the day, when he ran it this year, last year I think we saw decent savings, but I guess we have seen a little more turnover, a little more retirement. We have some younger employees. He said that this year it actually was pretty much a wash. Like he said, our savings was eaten up by the cost share portion to make sure that the employees that would be paying a really high rate kind of evened out. I mean, I think on here, the one he had, you know, one individual might be paying $723 a month, which, you know,
That's right.
it's all over the place. It's there's just no really easy way to set a rate for this. You would just have to pay more as the employer to make sure that no one's paying over X dollars. And in order to do that, it would end up getting savings. So it's just not really something that we're gonna recommend at this time, but, you know, it's an option.
Thanks for, yeah, let's just.
I know.
But in many ways, it's important that we keep,
We know.
well, it's important that we keep talking about this because, as Kelsey said, there is the likelihood that we're gonna have to move on this at one time or another. So we keep trying to include it as repetition, so everybody becomes a little bit more familiar with it in case that's a pathway we have to pursue at some point. This is not our year, hopefully.
Yeah, so anyways, there's a couple slides on that, but as we mentioned, kind of the general consensus there is, it's not really something we're recommending at this time, but it might be something in the future that we consider. So, we don't, because UHC declined, Aetna and Cigna are not ready. Really, right now, what we have is Legit and Care First and ICRA. So, the next step, if you're ready to do it this evening, great. If you need time to think about it, we can do it at the
We
next
can't go
meeting.
this evening.
Well,
So-
no, a recommendation, not a, we did that.
I think
Okay.
we have to, at this point, what would probably be done is
We
we would
do a
recommend,
motion For the next
yep,
meeting.
at the next meeting, unless we have any objection by anybody that wants to take a different route, what'll be introduced is moving forward with Care First, with us taking on, the town taking on the increase and not passing that along to the employees this year.
You can
Unless anybody's-
direct
That's all.
Natalie to include numbers based on this information in the budget, but you cannot make motions or vote on anything.
That's what I was saying. I would just need kind of a general consensus of what to put on a motion
Right.
So the
without
path,
a motion being made.
so the path that would be presented would be Care First,
That's our
with the
recommendation.
town taking the increase, not passing.
What we have now.
Right, and
With
if,
the 5%.
yes, and if, like I said, if Chris said he's happy to come back to the next meeting if we have something back from the other two in time, but he said at this point, this is what he feels confident recommending as well, so.
Do you have, or I guess maybe this might be more Natalie, do you have a dollar figure on what that would be, or are you not prepared to answer?
I'm sorry,
On saving with, sticking with what we have?
oh, it was,
Is it
I
about
quoted
50?
it, it was like
48?
48, yeah.
Is that was it?
Yeah, and if you did the 4.36, it was the 41,
Oh, I see.
and if you did the 6% on the employee, it was 38.
So it's the 47,676?
That is the annual increase.
I think that's page 9, am I correct?
Are you asking what the savings would be on this?
Oh,
general fund budget?
savings, I'm sorry, savings, I don't have that number in front of me.
I think Natalie
I'm
might
sorry.
be able to
That's
help.
the difference between current and recommended, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I think I ran some rough numbers last time, but I don't have, what you have what will be presented to you tonight for the electric and water is what it is for, it's 5% is what's in the budget for tonight, for them.
So utilities aren't going to change as far as...
Utilities won't change,
Okay.
no. So, but the general fund
Will change.
will change from what you saw last. So, yeah. I'm just
Natalie,
kinda looking
the
for
question
feedback.
was by Councilmember Orris, if you had the savings for the difference between the 5% rate versus what was in the draft copy of the budget.
I said I did not with me.
It's okay, if not, I just didn't know if you had the figure.
Yeah.
Vice President?
I just have one question. Did I understand that you first came with a 15% increase?
Mhm.
And then you came back with a 5% increase? Where did the 10% go?
To clarify, those were Care First's numbers.
Yes.
That's correct.
But multi-line discount, the
Correct, yeah.
early renewal.
Yes, 100%. There was a bunch of factors. The early renewal, I mean, that was 2% right there. Multi-line discounts, 3%. So there's 5% of it right there. And then the loyalty credit, I think with Care First goes a long way. I mean, I think that they love having, you all as a client, being a business of your size, but I also think that there is a level of, they're proud to have a Care First card in the town of Berlin's pocket. So I think they were happy to do that this year.
And how that typically works, just an FYI, basically, we start getting billed every month, as you'd see here. And, and then 1 month, essentially your bill's non-existent. They add your credit to 1 month. So, your 1 month might cost $3,000 and the rest of the months you're paying almost $80,000. But it's just funny that they don't break it up over the year. They just pretty much get rid of one of your months. So yeah, you'll see the decrease, but it won't really come until usually like October, November is when I kind of see that credit get applied to one of our monthly bills. So
I think that's good. Now, is there any objection for that path forward? Anybody see a different path? Thank you both, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you.
Please let Chris know that we miss him, but we do like seeing you, Zach.
So
So,
thank you guys.
thank you.
See you, Zach. Please
Bye,
stand up.
Shanika, you too.
Zach's a new father too. We have all these new fathers here.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
What'd
you get?
I got
What'd
a
you
little
get?
Congratulations.
Thank you so
Everybody healthy?
Yeah, man, everybody's doing great, so thank you all so much.
Enjoy.
It was good seeing you all, thank you so much, have a great night.
So up next is agenda item number 3, and it's a
Never
discussion
knew she was getting until they were born. So,
referencing the FY 2024 tax rate. Before we get into some potential paths forward, our finance director, Natalie Slay, if you don't mind just sharing what our deficit is at the present.
So as last we discussed, the general fund draft budget, on the reports, we have established that we have 220 with the consideration we were talking about if Worcester County additional funding will not be granted, we were adding 122 to continue fund the 2 EMS position. So that was bringing us to 325 ultimately, but from the discussion, I think my understanding that we're going to rely on the funding for the Worcester County. So if we are at 220, we have eliminated the legal expense as a line item from general fund of $25,000 as was suggested, and it was pilot contract software was omitted. So I'm going to give you the exact number right now. So let's round, we're still going to be around 220 after all, so the report will not change.
So the challenge that we're trying to overcome is about $220,000. I know I've talked to some of you on the council. I've also seen some emails floating around, and the finance director and I had a conversation about a path forward, but I'm welcome to entertain, and I'd love to hear from all of you if you have any suggestions on how we can move forward to close this $220,000 deficit in the general fund.
Just a question. What changed? We believe we're going to get the funding from the county for the membership?
We've asked for it, and we're hoping that like other requests, like there's no guarantee that the 465 that we asked
Right.
for is going to come through.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more likelihood than the 122, but we've asked for it, and we are
Yeah.
relying on that. Otherwise, we have a $325,000.
Yeah, we would go with that number.
I would go with that number.
Okay, well,
I just don't think- we were in the room that day. That's not, I don't believe we're getting that. I think that deficit is higher. That's all. I would prefer to use that number, and if we get it, it's a.
okay. I mean, if we can hit that,
Yeah.
that's fine, but I think that, in my mind, I have a $220,000 deficit right this moment.
So does that include the removal of legal, the 25?
It does, yep,
Okay, so that's already.
that's already out.
So Natalie, I have a couple questions. There's a surprise, I'm sure. The $500,000 that's assigned to town hall / planning renovations. Okay, so it's my understanding that if that were to move anywhere, it really would be budget neutral.
Correct.
Correct. But if we pull a couple levers around with it, my first question would be, the only reason that it's in capital reserve is because that's where we assigned it. So there's nothing to say that we can't unassign it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it is possible, this is for everybody, but part of what I'm thinking is if we want to take the route of unassigning some of that, that can help us out, along with pulling levers like the mayor has said before, and other avenues. Obviously, this is the discussion for the for the tax rate and the enterprise funds, general fund, so I'm not sure how deep we want to get into that, but I am comforted in knowing that that option is there to unassign a fund, unassigned funds that we have assigned somewhere.
Where would you, like, provide some examples as to where you would like to see that redirected?
Well,
we know where the
Mayor,
from.
Mayor, I'm sorry, before we go into
I think-
discussion,
yeah.
I think there is a misunderstanding. Reassigning the capital reserve and assigning to different expenditure will not touch the deficit number.
right, that's what I understand that. But what I'm suggesting though is if, for example, we cut a few things, I hate to use that word, it could help balance in the end. Because the reason, it was originally surplus, correct? It was 1.1 in surplus. And we put 400 to public works, 500 to town hall, 166 went to stabilization, correct?
There was a little bit more that went to capital as well.
I think we're
it was
mixing right
266.
now, it's going to be very confusing to the public to understand.
Well, okay, so-
We're mixing two different things and comparing oranges to apples.
All right,
We're talking about the audited unassigned balance at the end of fiscal '22. We
Yes.
have available funds unassigned. So we have created reserve buckets, as we called them in the past, to fund future projects. So we have created a capital reserve to potentially have an opportunity to do something as a capital project for the general fund. It doesn't have to happen in fiscal '23. It doesn't have to happen in fiscal '24. That reserve fund could be carried over and added on or subtracted. Now, if we're deleting the capital project from this particular fiscal '24 budget, you will ultimately set aside the capital reserve back and will not impact the deficit.
thank you.
Do you have potential, so this is part of the discussion, do you have potential paths or things, you said cuts, like what are you thinking, like where's your mind at? We are trying to close at least, let's just try to get to 220 first. If we can get to 325, by all means, that's great,
One
but.
thing I'd like to recommend is,
Go ahead.
we allocated $200,000 for additional pay. We have the pay study. We anticipate making some pay adjustments for the good of the employees. What we could do is do those adjustments because we have budgeted the money, but cut the year-end one-time payment, which would save approximately $50,000. That's one issue. Another issue is, I know the chief asked for a police vehicle, but it's not it's an auxiliary vehicle.
I think there's some confusion around that, just so that we're clear, that is a police vehicle, like a patrol car. And it's part of the capital replacement schedule that he has.
I thought the way he described it was for a different use.
No, we had discussed trying to get a Gator, but that would be much less than 52,000.
Right.
This is for a police car.
It is for a police
Yeah, it's for a patrol car. And I believe, Natalie, was that police car funded tentatively LIG or no?
No.
Okay, but I do recommend keeping that, just so that we're on schedule with our replacement plan.
All right, if it's
I
a
know
regular
that-
vehicle, that's one thing. I
Yeah.
thought it was for-
And, yeah, we've had some, just so that everybody's aware, we've had some police vehicles that have had some repairs that they're making now, and it's important that we stay on that capital replacement schedule. So, to my knowledge, that is a police vehicle.
Do we still have? I was thinking that we had started to get on the upside of that. We just did 3 in the last couple of years.
But yeah, we're on, you'll probably continue to see at least a police car a year. Keep in mind, we have 15 of them.
Right.
They are rolling around quite a bit.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
yeah.
I was
I
thinking
would-
every 2 to 3.
Now, what was the savings, Councilmember, that you had for one-time payments? I know we've discussed this.
So I have that number right here.
Okay, go ahead.
It was 20, from Natalie's number in November. For the general fund, it was about 25,000. For water, it was 8,000. And electric, it was 5,400. So that was
Just to
Five.
clarify, the only deficit that you're discussing at the moment is general fund,
Yes.
just so there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah, and I just wanted, because I had actually 40,000 in my head all along, and then I realized that it's, that's
You're right,
everything.
it's broken up.
Yeah, so,
Still 25.
I mean, I didn't think that we wanted to go too deep into the weeds in here, but personally, what I think that we could do is, the reason I brought up the whole question about the restricted was because if we, all right, here, my thought was this: if we, as the council, unrestrict 400,000 of that 500 that's earmarked for town hall and planning renovations, that leaves 100,000 in there for what we decide we want to do, laying the groundwork for the town hall. Because as far as I know, we haven't had a discussion. I don't think we have any quotes. And kind of that's my rationale for it, and kind of my comparison is, we're setting aside $100,000 for West, which is great, but we know that's going to be a multi-million-dollar project. So I think that if that's a good start for that, 100,000 could be a good start for town hall.
For just
For
the
right now.
design and planning.
Yeah.
I think that makes
I mean,
sense.
so if we, as a group, and decide to unrestrict the 400,000, along with pulling some additional levers, the one-time payment, some personnel, deputy town administrator. I also think, and I want to be clear about this, and I don't want anyone hearing this, I don't want it to be misinterpreted. Since we're unrestricting the 400, possibly unrestricting the 400,000, that could help cover our hopeful intent with the salary study. Therefore, you could remove the 200,000 line that's under contingency.
The one caveat with that, and I would caution the group to cover year-over-year expenditures with one-time money, because we will be in a position where that cost is reoccurring.
No, and I mean, I understand that, and I've thought of that as well, which kind of ties into, I understand Councilmember Nichols asked at the general fund session for, well, the group asked, for potentially increased revenues, not taxes, but for like fees and licenses. Is that, I assume that will be presented to us at some point as a potential draft?
Yeah,
To see.
We discussed the timeline for some of that. I think as early as next meeting, we're going to discuss.
And I don't
At
want to
Monday's
assume
meeting,
that's
we'll
why.
be discussing business licenses specifically, because we have to get that nailed down in time for the annual bill. But the other fees can be discussed on a more leisurely
Yeah, but we'll
schedule.
we're going to tackle like business license fees, then it's going to be plant. I think it was trash and then planning or something like that. I have the timeline written down.
And I understand that concern, and I did, I did think about that as well. I think it's something that I wanted to present as part of my thought process on the whole budget.
But so far, and I'm just trying to understand what your thoughts are. We've got $100,000 for design and planning of town hall, pulling potentially the funding for the deputy town administrator position, and increases the fees and licenses. Are there projects?
And the contingency line. If we
To
go
cover the contingency line.
Because, I mean, it is a little, I understand it's a little semantics. I mean, if we're going to use the part of the 400,000 now surplus money, I guess, or it was unrestricted, we're still going to use it for the 200,000 that was originally there. So it's a little bit of, it's not really a cut, it's just a different bucket.
Once you give direction on where you want to see the overall salary numbers go, that 200,000 will be moved out of contingency and into those various other areas. So that contingency will likely, assuming that a decision is made regarding salaries prior to the final budget being presented, that contingency will disappear or at least reduce anyway, because it will have moved into the salary line items.
right, so the elephant in the room is the pay study. At what point are we discussing this? Because I'm ready to talk about it, quite honestly. Let's talk about it. I mean, I know we can't go in private and talk about it, but we can talk in tiers. Of the 3 tiers that are in the group, there are, in the study, there's tiers that we can talk about.
Correct, and I think that
Is that on Monday's agenda too?
Well, no, that's not, because we're still working, the way that the last meeting went, and Councilmember Green and Vice President Burrell were both in the meeting, the documents and stuff have been shared with the group, so everybody's well aware of where we're at. We still have some questions about the structuring of some of the contents within the draft, but I think the overall consensus is that the group would like to move forward with trying to implement as quickly as possible. With that, there is a figure, and everybody's aware of what that figure is. We're optimistic that the amount in contingency can cover with what's the obligation within the general fund, but there's the possibility that this could be rolled out after the budget's adopted, which means that the contingency item may remain, and then shortly thereafter, a month or so into the first fiscal year budget, there's probably going to be a reallocation. And I want to do that publicly because a contingency is one thing, but we're going to want to reappropriate that within each department. Well, because we don't truly know the answer to some of our questions yet. We have some ballpark figures, which is basically...
Why can't we as a council, as Steve suggested, talk about it?
Yeah, because until we decide on what we're gonna do with that budget study, we're just blowing smoke. Someone said in some meeting I attended that it has been the process and it has been perceived that during budget time, the town of Berlin will develop draft budgets, and staff is always left for last. That is, that really, if I was working here, would be a hard pill for me to swallow. With their qualified and committed staff, all the trucks we buy, all the cars we purchase, all the grass we cut would just be nowhere. You have to have qualified, committed staff that's gonna implement the town's plan. And those folks need to be compensated accordingly. We got to stop saving staff for last and put them where they need to be is up front. Mayor, you talked about having us sharing our path forwards for dealing with this deficit. I would like, as the mayor and as the leader of this group sitting here and the town in general, I would like to hear what you have to say about the path forward before I share.
The finance director and I have discussed the path forward. Do you want to share that with the group?
It's your call, Mayor.
Okay, I don't mind, and then you pick up where I may leave some gaps. So to cover the $220,000 deficit, we suggest a 2-cent increase on the tax rate, and then covering the remaining capital items, which should leave a delta of about $100,000 or so with impact fees. Anything I left out of that, Natalie?
No, that's pretty much the discussion to the extent of it. I do want to bring again to the attention to not fund ongoing expenditure with one-time advancement, whether it's a capital reserve, whether it's impact fees, or whether it's something else, or we're shifting from this expenditure to the next. I can tell you right now, the next year expenditures are not going to be less.
Right.
They're just not. As of right now, we're looking at the invoices, I'm looking at 6 months expenditure versus for the next 6 months. The prices are doubled for everything.
As much as we would like to believe that those prices will come down as a result of moving out of the pandemic, I think that historically, we know from just the economy, the way the economy works, we may see a reduction, but we'll never regain the levels that we were prior to the pandemic. I think that the prices that we're seeing now are here to stay.
2%,
The
2 cent, 2 cent will generate how much income?
103.
Here in front of you, but I can't see that on the screen.
And just so that we're clear, that is to get to 220.
At 83, so 2 cents, 83.50 at 83 cents, 0.8350, we will receive approximately 105
Additional.
additional.
But now-
103, is it 103?
It's 100.
103,
Oh, five.
$103,051 to be exact.
That's the last
That's
green shaded line on
projections.
the.
Again, this is just projections.
Now, keep in mind that roughly 2 cents comes in at what? About what on a percentage basis
One
increase?
penny gives you about 50.
No, I'm saying like overall, like when you look at that percentage increase based off.
2.45% increase.
So 2.45%. And if we can get there through other means, which is why, I mean, we're asking for suggestions and we're open to suggestions.
Right,
Um,
so we saved the 25,000
Sure.
by not doing the one-time pay.
Yeah, gotcha.
Going back to the pay study, some of the adjustments, and I won't mention individual names or, positions, but some of the adjustments were pretty significant.
Correct.
If we were to cap some of the larger adjustments and do that over a 2-year, possibly 3-year period, we'd save not just in the general fund, but all departments, all the utility fund as well. Which means you'd spend less than the $200,000 allocated, which means there's an additional savings there. I don't have an exact number, but it would probably be 20 grand or something.
I'd be happy to talk those over with you right now, the reports in the draft format.
Right.
But I'm open to suggestions on how we can get to the result. But
Yeah.
keep in mind that we want to make our employees as whole as possible within a duration that's reasonable.
Correct. We didn't
So-
anticipate some of these large adjustments, and like if you capped it at 10,000, the max adjustment in 1 year, that still gives you plenty of room to do the next adjustment in the next year, possibly 3 like this.
Yes, that's where I was barking, that's just the tree I've been barking up, and I'm going to talk some generalities here. Because I'm feeling for the employees because they have to be dying to know what this pay study says. This pay study says that, I thought it was going to be much more of a mixed bag, and unfortunately it wasn't. It says that we need to raise the salary of 24 people that are substantially below market. So that's tier 1. Tier 2 is we need to raise the salary of 16 positions that are below market, which is 5% below market. And then it says to raise the salary of 21 positions to the closest step. So let's review. The goal of this was to, I feel like, formalize the structure of our employee compensation, where we create a grade system and a step system, because we feel like that is needed. I think the group wouldn't have agreed to spend the dollars, the ARPA dollars on this study if that wasn't the consensus. This was made before I was up here. So I did the calculations of, we have 13 positions of the 62 that are studied that have called for single-year increases of over $8,000. I picked 8,000 as the cap number. Councilman Nur picked 10. I picked 8,000 as the cap number because if you do the math, it's still a significant increase for these folks. There's some that are, I think, we get into the bones of the study, there's some, you could have some concerns, but I think that, there is a position that caused, significant increases, 3 times the cap amount that I'm proposing. If we go with the cap amount, which is a single year increase of 8,000, and put them in the right grade, that new total drops from 317,191, which is the proposed amount in the corrected second draft that was updated today, because an employee was left out. So that total, again, is 317,191 to address the study recommendations in 1 year. And I hear the phasing out the 2 and 3. 3, I would be adamantly opposed to because there's an election in between. We can't make a decision for what others are going to do.
There's an election in between.
The third,
Yeah, there's an election between,
One
like,
and two.
there's one more fiscal year budget,
yeah.
and then there's an election.
So so I guess what I'm proposing is a 1-year increase to try to make these folks whole that are at substantially below the market. I find that there are, let's see, 7 of them that stand to get, study suggests increases over 8,000 in a single year. I think that the town of Berlin, with the budget that we have and being responsible, we cannot do that in a single year. And I would hope that our folks would realize that, the commitment that's being made. So with an $8,000 cap, put them at the right grade, the general fund expense is $153,747. The water is $50,193, and electric is $22,322.
Can you give
Now,
those numbers one more time?
sure.
General fund.
General fund, $153,747.
153, 747.
Yeah, and water would be $50,193, and electric is $22,322. I just feel like this is so germane because of what we're talking about tonight.
What's the total?
The total would be $226,262. But I know what we're
And
talking.
then the year 2 total would be, do you have that or not?
No, I don't, because really that's the proposal that I was making, is that we cap it at that single year increase, and then we get these folks at the right grade, and then administration determines steps and things path forward. So I guess my point being, if the employee calls for a $15,000 increase, my proposal is that we cap it at $8,000, and that we leave it at that. We put them on the grade.
Balance due next year.
Well, we could do a balance due next year.
Balance due next year.
Or my thought was put them on the grade, have this commitment to them, and then they start going through the process of the steps.
So you're saying stop at 8, like cap, no matter what it says in the report, to stop it at 8?
That is me being conservative and thinking that we're responsible, and we're hoping that we're providing some of these folks the job, culture, and things that we hope we can. I hope that it shows a commitment, because it's a significant increase. I'm open to picking it up next year where we keep a tab, but I do think that getting them on the grade and the step, and then of course our decisions up here, it becomes COLAs. Once they're on the grade, the steps are handled by administration, human resources, right? And then we decide COLAs.
And just in all transparency, we've all talked in some ways or shapes or forms about this, that when you look at the size of the obligation, even if you cap it at the proposal that you have, which we're still open to all those things, that's why it's a draft report
Yeah.
that we're trying to work through. The cost is so high that we got to figure out whether COLAs are affordable in this year or not. And I think that we've all seen the numbers enough that they're not final numbers, but I think a COLA is going to be difficult for us to do this year.
Right,
Which is
yeah.
also why when we get to healthcare numbers and we're looking at the cost going up, why the recommendation is not to shift that cost increase to the.
Oh, absolutely. I think
Keep in
that's.
mind, if your goal is to achieve a midpoint for pay ranges to be competitive, and you don't do a COLA, then automatically you're behind next year.
No, that doesn't change that.
How so?
Because as explained, as it was explained by the consultant, that doesn't necessarily put you behind just because you don't do COLA. Because in years where you have a decrease in the cost of living, it doesn't adjust, you don't adjust that pay scale down. So it's not a moving target as much.
But you just wouldn't add it, like a year that you didn't have a cost of living increase, like, you wouldn't add it to your
That's what I'm talking about.
stepping grade for the following year, but in a year where there is a cost of living
Make sure
adjustment,
Natalie, or
we want to
Mary
put it
gets
in
one for the
there.
record, please.
But
Thanks, Steve.
listening at Steve, and just capping the recommendation of the study, I would still be substantially underpaid the following year. I would be in favor of a 2-year plan, which is gonna put people where it is recommended in the study. And that means if I am substantially under market value today, and it takes, let's pretend, $16,000 to bring me up, this year, you would cap it at 8, but I would be due 8 the following year, and that's gonna put me where the study has said I should be, but I'm still gonna be missing that goal.
Well, but the thing is that we have to keep in mind that when the study says it's where something is supposed to be, right? It's there because in essence, they've taken the market data and then they've applied our metric to it, which we've said as a group that we want folks to be at the 50th percentile within the market. Now, if that's not where the group wants to be, that's different. But then we need to settle on where that is within the market that we do want to be. Because, Steve, your idea is fiscally responsible, I agree. But it does keep folks in some aspects below market rate. So we have to make the determination, which is why we're still having some internal meetings about the appropriate allocation of grade of a position, the appropriate place within the market where we want to be. So those things are great for us to discuss, and I'm welcome to have those conversations, but I think that it's still a little too early in some respects, and it's not going to change the fact that I would still want to move forward with a $200,000 contingency.
But Steve just pointed out a path to saving 100.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that, and I'm optimistic if that works. But I'm hopeful that that could be the case, but I don't see that changing the introduced contingency at this point.
But I think we still have to come to the, really, sorry, I still think we need to kind of, this is great, but we need to come to the, I don't say realization, we still have to balance, we still have a budget to balance here. So either way, we dice this, if we wait on this or not, we still have to have a balanced budget by, what, June 30th? July 1, whatever that is.
No, we have to have a balanced budget before introduction, which is when.
First meeting.
So, I mean, again, and I'm not going to go back to the whole restricted thing again, but either way you look at it, these are going to be recurring costs. So if it comes from a surplus or whatever, it's still going to happen again. We're still going to have to keep paying. So it's either, I guess my question really is then, how do we want to fund it? How do we want to balance the budget? That's how I'm looking at this first.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, and I'm not trying to overstep, and I appreciate all your suggestions, but we just mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that every single thing when it comes to the deficit, every time put employees on the table. And I'm sorry, but this is exactly what we're doing right now.
Well, that's
First
not what I meant.
discussion commonplace is cut off the one-time pay and not fund people at their level that they're supposed to be funded. I just lost an employee to better pay to a different organization. And it's very difficult to find somebody in our Eastern Shore, Lower Eastern Shore professional who would replace that employee. Never, for the same amount. So deferring the funding of employees at the rate that they're supposed to be paid and telling them to wait for another year or two, knowing that the inflation and the cost of living are going to go up. I just don't feel that is appropriate.
But
I
now,
don't
some of
think
these
it would-
raises were totally unexpected. And some of these raises they're very significant. So if I make a commitment to you, I'm just using you as an example, I'm going to give you $8,000 this year and make up the balance next year, as Dean suggested. I think you could appreciate that.
Sure, I will, but not everybody.
And I think the
That's my issue, that's my problem.
I think the important takeaway is that I don't see, to Councilmember Orse's point, we have a deficit that we need to close, right? I think we start with 220, if we can get to 325, great. But either way, I can say with near certainty, you are going to get a budget introduced with a $200,000 contingency. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's still too early for us to adjust that. Now, if new information becomes available, I'm open to meeting with every single one of you about a way to move forward with the pay study.
Can
And
I
I want it to be
interject?
responsible. What's that?
Sorry, I thought you were.
No, I want it to be responsible,
Mhm.
but it's not going to change where we're at right this present
Right,
moment, I don't think.
To Natalie's point, this is why I wanted to bring it up tonight, so it's not the last thing. So
Right.
that's why, and I get, you maybe not disagree with the concept that I've put forward, but this is why I feel like we've been kicking the can down the road. That's why I wanted to have it tonight. So that, just to answer that.
And the expectation from every single employee, that wage study was kind of, that's what we waited for as a
Yeah.
result. And now we hearing, I don't even have these numbers. This is the first time I'm hearing those numbers.
And so now, I mean.
To announce that and tell them that you will have to wait for a year or two, I think that's going to be just heartbreaking.
And I don't think that you were directing that to me personally, and I
I'm
want
not
you to
directing
know. Well, because you were just kind of, I was talking, but I just wanted, what I was trying to say was, I'm personally committed to this, like to the salary study. I want to make sure that this gets done. I think that I would like to see it in 1 year, personally. But what I'm saying here today was, we still have the budget that is currently in deficit. So while we're talking about this, we need to keep that in mind. That's all I meant by it.
And can I add in, I just ran some numbers, that's why I was on my phone. I was pulling the original spreadsheet that was presented with the health insurance. And it just as a rough number, this is some rough math here, but general fund looks like about a $35,000 decrease based on the new health insurance number. Electric actually would remain the same, and that is a clerical error. I realize that I left them at 5% increase based from last year's spreadsheet, so that is thankfully spot on. So electric's not changing, and then water, it's about a $38,000 decrease, even from what you're seeing tonight, because 2 employees have been hired since even these numbers were presented, and they did not elect health insurance.
You said
So-
$38,000 decrease?
$38,000 decrease.
I thought I misheard you.
Yeah, so we hired 2 people that did not elect health insurance, so there is no, I had budgeted assuming, I always budget assuming someone's gonna take on a family plan. So that if we fill those vacancies, we have that budgeted. So that is a $38,000 decrease to the water fund as a whole. I mean, if you're looking for the specific departments, I can get you those. And then electric is actually gonna remain the same, but that does include a family plan for the one requested position under the power plant, and then general fund was an overall decrease of $35,000.
So that's 30,000.
great.
70,000 decrease in the general fund.
Can I throw out some specifics while we're here then?
No, general fund is
No, it's
35.
only 35 in the general fund. The other was water resources.
Oh, I'm
38 for
sorry.
water.
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
and electric is remaining the same unless for some reason that requested position comes out, then that number would go down 19,000. So,
All right, so we're open to other suggestions. I want to be cognizant of time. Where are we? Yep, we've got some time.
So I had the $30,000 for playground and benches that was under the Parks and Recreation on capital list. We have program open space pending application, so I have that down.
Yeah,
Which
now-
figure were you talking
That's-
about?
30,000, on the capital plan, it's $30,000 for playgrounds and benches.
No, that was town funds. That was not intended to be grant funds. That was routine replacement and maintenance.
Yeah, so I have that to be cut.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
was that
I was
something we lumped
misunderstanding.
into LIG or no?
No, he's looking at the actual
No.
general fund.
So that-
Looking at the line.
Okay, so the,
I thought he-
and the playground equipment was what figure again, Councilmember Green?
30,000,
Now, I would not recommend cutting all of that because there's always equipment that breaks and needs to be fixed and repaired, but
Now, a portion of that increase or replacement was for Steve Decatur Park, and we're optimistic that hopefully we can get this grant. So it may make sense to make the
I
reduction this
never
year.
count on a grant until I have the letter in my hand.
Right, but I think reducing that line item by something would be acceptable. We'd have to run the number by Jimmy and them to see what they think is a reasonable amount. What was in there last year? Do you have that figure?
but this, I just have 30,000, I'm sorry.
So we
Okay.
kept $5,000.
So you're reducing it by removing Stephen Decatur Purple Climber and Stephen Decatur Park benches.
Which I think is-
25,000 is the Purple Climber. and
How much is the Purple
5,000 25,000.
Okay.
And 5,000 was allocated to Stephen Decatur Park benches.
I think we should.
Now,
keep-
originally, this number was way higher. From the work sessions, those numbers were slashed in half to do some and not all. But the Purple Climber did not pass the inspection according to Cody. And that's the reason was there added, because you will have to either close that or replace the climber.
To say that it didn't pass inspection, it has not been flagged as required for removal. But it's an older piece of equipment, so it no longer meets current standards. But I would say you would probably be safe if you had to in removing it.
But I would keep something in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
And the reason that I'm saying that we're okay to do that is that hopefully we'll get, now, if we don't get the grant, then that's gonna be an expenditure that we see next year. We can take that when it comes. I would reduce it not by 30, but maybe by 20, and safely keep 10 within the allocation.
Okay.
Just to help me to keep track of it. Now, the item on the table was to remove one-time payment. Is that an agreement, and am I removing one-time payment?
And moving forward with the pay study.
Well, and that has been discussed somewhat by the group. The one-time payment, I think, can safely be removed at this time. The playground equipment, do we have the number for the budget line item?
It's 25 for the climber and 5,000 for benches. How
I'm
much
saying, what's
was
the
it?
01, what's the number? Just-
5,500.
I'll get it on the, don't worry about the general ledger accounts. I'll get it out of there.
I'm doing it so that I know in my
It's-
mind.
I'll send you a report.
Thank you.
We need to stick nine.
One-time payment represents how much?
Steve?
25 for the general
25.
fund.
Say it.
25,000 for the general fund, correct? I believe that was the number.
Kelsey, do you, I don't have that
One-time
spreadsheet.
Oh, I got the spreadsheet, I'm sorry. Do you, let's see.
We got 25,
Just give us one minute,
35,
please.
I have
35.
general.
Are we saying 20 with the playground?
General fund, 25,000.
Stop the general fund.
Steve, did you have anything?
Yeah, I did have a couple.
Stop the general.
So let's
So I'm-
make sure that the finance director has it.
Okay.
So we've got a $35,000 reduction based on Kelsey's calculations. now.
25.
Yeah, that's it.
You said 35, right, Kelsey?
For health insurance.
Health insurance is 35. Yeah.
We've got 25 for one-time payment.
Right.
We have $20,000 to the line item that includes that climber.
Did you say,
I did have,
And yep, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, so we're at 80,000.
did you say remove the climber completely or remove
To
20,000?
reduce it to $10,000.
Okay,
Yep.
reduce it to 10. I thought you were saying reduce it,
No.
take 10, reduce it to 20.
No,
So
no, no, reduce it.
15,
by
remove the
20.
benches.
I would reduce it to 10 and let Cody and Jimmy kind of figure out what they can do with that.
Okay, so just take 10 out of it. Got it.
No, taking
Take
20 out.
20.
The total should be 10.
Got it.
And that gets us to a savings of $80,000 so far. Okay?
You just want to go down like the line? Because I mean, I didn't know we were going.
Yeah, we're
down the
taking,
line.
we're taking suggestions.
Okay, well, I mean,
I didn't know
or if
you were
you-
doing that.
but I've got others, but go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off.
On the capital project list for, and this is, this horse was, I'm on board with 2 cents, for one. I'm gonna go on the record on that. That's not a surprise to anybody. I'm on board with 2 cents property tax increase for the stability of the town moving forward. But I did have the, in an earlier capital budget, the police car videos was a wish, it became a want. I have it on my list as 20,000 to wait. And I also have the IT server, to see if we can put that off a year. Listen, I do business with the same vendor, and I know how it gets. It kind of sometimes you can get kind of pushed in a direction. I'd like to see if we can put that off a year.
And those savings.
I'm sorry, so 21,000 for the IT server, 20,000 for the car video units,
Okay.
and I'll rest.
Now, just so that we're on the same page, Natalie, the 21 for the IT server, does that get picked up by customer accounts? Or is that,
It's an administration now. it
it's
does
an
not
admin? Okay. And would that result in a change in the deficit?
get- Yes.
Okay, and then $20,000 for the car video, is that within?
Same scenario out of police department now. Have we discussed that with chief?
No, we're gonna need the chief's feedback on it, but I have that in a category of, I've separated it out as, on my paper, as the rolling things that I think we're comfortable with and the things that we should follow up on. I have that in the follow up on
Sure.
category,
Yeah.
just because I would want to hear from Cards on the IT server,
Yeah,
and I would want to hear from the chief on the video.
yep.
So,
So, a question.
yes.
If Worcester County does not grant us $122,000 to fund the EMS to additional positions, will we be inclined to not fund that?
Actually, that was going to be my suggestion for part of the 400,000 unrestricted,
So
to fund them in the event that the county does not come through.
And what's going to happen next year? I'm
What's
sorry,
gonna-
fiscal 25.
The argument that I want to say pushback, the comments that I keep hearing about this is that what's going to happen next year, and I understand that. But these, as you have already said, all of us have already said, these are going to be recurring anyway. So what I'm just saying is we have the opportunity to have what used to be surplus that is now capital reserve, to unreserve it and have that money available. It's not going to go anywhere. It'll still be there next year if we kept it where it is. But what I'm trying to say is, it's there. It was surplus. The only reason it's reserved is because that's where we put it.
But to that point, the surplus that we had was also used to build up, I'm just so everybody knows, it's not just getting set off to the side and put somewhere.
Right.
Each year, that surplus by this council and the previous council has worked to ensure that our town is in a much better financial position, right? So the things that we've set off to the side help accomplish things for like a stabilization fund with revenues if they were to go down. They help accomplish things like capital projects, like this building, like public works, like it's not just extra, put it off to the side, it's trying to whittle away at the things that we have that are real expensive.
And I hear that, but as we said when I first brought it up, is there was over, from that surplus, there was 200,000 put into stabilization. We have 400,000 for the public works building, and we all, well, I can't say we all, it seemed to be an agreeable number to keep 100,000 in there for town hall. So,
Oh, I don't agree with that.
oh, well,
Jack, you just want to unreserve the money,
I just want to reserve it. We can really use it.
but that can be
for-
done at any point.
It could be.
It doesn't have to happen.
And none of that
The
500 is
idea
going to
would,
be
on the
spent
table right now,
without
just to
distributing.
explain in the regular language, to take 500,000 from reserve,
Right.
take this money.
And unreserved.
And instead of spending 500,000 on the building, put 100,000 towards the building, and then allocate the 400
elsewhere.
elsewhere.
Elsewhere, where?
Essentially.
Well,
Essentially, one of the
Well,
items is the fire company.
And not that wasn't just it. I wanted to use some of this to help with the salary study for staff. Essentially, it's all
But
going
if this is a
to,
decision to make, then you don't have to go line by line right now on the budget and cut 25 people in 5 little small amounts. If the decision to unrestrict the reserve and allocate it as one time to cover this budget, the deficit will be covered right now.
that's true.
well, thank you.
But what we're going to do next year? My question still stands. The salary will be the same as an increase. The fire EMS will be there as an increase. The reserve will not be there.
Well, I'm not going to split hairs, but the fire part was, the reason I'm putting that, suggesting that in is because last year, the 125 extra was for staff for their EMS. And that's what they used it for, and I just think it was
And
kind
that
of
was
a
funded by
surprise.
ARPA. It's
Not the 125, that was through us, that was general. The ARPA paid for the 220 for the
For the
heart
capital,
monitors and
yes.
the other things. This came from us to fund their second crew. And, you
To
know,
provide, yeah, 2 additional.
I mean, I think that's, in the beginning of this, in fact, Mary, you asked me, I think it was like a phone call or something, you know, what are you thinking, what are you looking at the fire department? And I said to you, well, And I wouldn't imagine to be anything less than 525 because that's what they were. And that included the extra staffing.
So the incremental tax increase should be allocated to the ongoing EMS.
Well, I personally think that when we look at impact fees, we could probably do something for emergency services there. But that's down the road. Right now, we're dealing with this.
Which is also why we've requested $122,000 in assistance from the county. And I've made it very clear to the county that this is a one-time ask, that we will not be coming back for another 122 next year for assistance. This is to get us through fiscal year '24.
And you were very eloquent, but like Mary, I'm not going to count on a grant unless it's in the bank.
And that was a
Yeah.
reallocation of money they
Correct.
allocated.
Correct.
It's to provide a cushion for us to get through fiscal year '24.
So is the
And Noble
125
will
currently
play.
in the budget?
What's that?
Is the 125 EMS payment currently in the budget?
Correct, it is.
It is.
But it's funded, budgeted to be funded
Right.
from the county, so there is no impact on the general fund.
Gotcha, okay.
But now if that grant doesn't come through, you're looking at a $325,000
Jumps
deficit.
back.
That's gonna increase that deficit
Correct.
accordingly.
Yeah. So I'm still open to suggestions, and we've got about another
Well, I
10 minutes.
I don't want it to take up the whole time. I mean, I did have additional cuts, enhancements, I guess you could say. But
Did we
I'm
ever
done.
solve that was the question. I felt like we never got call me the bad guy. That was a question I felt we never got a true answer to, or I felt like I don't have a true answer to. Did we ever get a solve or a date on when we're releasing these funds for these heart catheter?
The heart monitors?
Yeah.
They said that they were ordered, and we said that whenever you receive them, to send us an invoice.
Okay, that was the part I was.
To my knowledge, they have not sent us that. Right. Have they sent an invoice yet?
There is an invoice for one capital item. I don't remember exactly, it was a multiple line item.
I don't think it was the heart
But I
monitors,
don't
it
think
wasn't
it's heart
enough.
monitors. It
I
was
don't
something else. But
Maybe
we
it should
have
be
released
47
some
probably.
up from
Maybe it was
from
the
the capital.
SCBA units?
It should be 47,580.
For one,
One and a
I'd
half.
have to look.
right.
Plus, it's 1.5 plus the town put the entire bill for the ability to transmit those 12 leads. So the unit is capable of taking a picture of the heart in layman's terms and sending that out. The town did not say, well, I'm going to cover 1.5. We said, we'll cover all 3 for that. So,
So far between the 80 and the 41, that's 121,000 off the 220.
80 and what?
41,000.
Yeah, I would put that, I would be skeptical in lumping that. It's a
Well, how
great
does possible-
effort in putting it forward, but I think that's something we need to talk to Cards and the chief about, and then from there, if we're able to move that over, that's great.
One thing I'd like to say about the server is, Cards recommended as part of their replacement thing. But I specifically asked him about the operating system they use, and they're always one behind.
A
So it's
generation.
not like it's going to be the latest and greatest. The server might be new, hard drives will be new, but there's no reason why we can't get one more year out of what we have.
And that's something that is not an area of my expertise. I would rely on Cards to make that.
They err on the side of caution that the warranty is expiring. So if it went up, we would not be covered by warranty. So replace it and don't ever lose that warranty coverage.
But you have redundant backups.
Yes, yes, but if the server itself went up is what, I'm just explaining their philosophy on why they introduce their equipment
What you would
replacements
lose
at
is
the
a
point
hard
that they
drive
do.
in the server. There's probably 4 hard drives, 2 of them are redundant. If you lost a hard drives are very expensive. I mean, so you could replace the hard drive in the current server.
And that would likely be the solution that they
Reinstall
would
your
suggest.
Just for 1 year.
And we're going to ask that question. If it's an ability to move forward with an additional year out of the server, then we'll make sure that that's put forward. But right now, I have that in the follow-up category. I have 80,000 in the, okay, we're there.
Right. 80,000 is a short, for sure, and those other 2 are in the questionable
Correct.
IT employees.
Yep, if there's any other suggestions, I'm open to it.
But the question mark too is we don't know what the new revenues that will be associated with potentially commercial trash.
Correct.
So how would we handle that? Because I know it's not hypothetical, but I mean, we're not talking.
It probably would not be realized until fiscal year '25.
Yeah.
I would
The
say,
only
wouldn't you
bill-
agree? I mean, there's,
I would not incline to adjust the budget according to potential increase in commercial rates or even planning department.
It's unknown.
It's unknown how many permits we're gonna issue, and also the trash fees, if there is an increase in operations, that's what it's gonna go towards.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
And the business license is already on the budget.
Factored in.
To Natalie's point regarding the commercial collection fees for the trash, it is not currently covering the expenses of that department, so you're not really gonna realize a revenue, you're just gonna.
Right. That's true. Good point.
So Natalie, why on the business license, if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, it was increased, it was budgeted 35,000, and then we suggested doubling that fee. Why was it only an increase of 19?
Because it's not all towns, the town is at only 19, the rest comes from the state. We do receive a kickback from the state license by the state, that is included in the same line item. The town issue a $75 business license to operate within the town limits. So the amount that is town increasing is what the increase is reflected. So 19 was increased for the amount that we received from the businesses within the town limits.
The line item for business licenses covers both revenue directly to the town from the businesses and revenue from the state to the town,
Okay, all right.
which we have no
Right.
control.
Thank you.
I mean, folks, aren't we talking about some sort of reserve transfer? Well, I guess we should probably weigh in on the Mayor and Natalie's proposal for a 2-cent tax increase. I mean, I'm not making motions here, but that's a big piece of this puzzle.
No, you can't make a
Right,
motion
no, I know,
tonight, but
but
what
we
you
can talk
can
about
do is indicate to staff what number you will be comfortable seeing on that ordinance next Monday.
Right.
And it is still up for discussion. It does not put it in stone, but it allows us to fill in that blank that you can then talk about.
Yeah, I think it's important for
Public
public hearing too, for the citizens to have an idea. I know we're not making a motion, I just,
2 cents takes us to 83.5, right?
Yeah, yes.
I have a little research here. So back in 2012, the tax increase was 73 cents. It was reduced 5 cents to 68. Yeah, you regret that, right? And then
I heard it, what is it?
so it stayed 68 cents for 2 years, and then we had this big jump, the 18% jump to 80 cents in 2019. It stayed 80 2020, went up to 81 and a half in 2021, stayed last year 81 and a half. So just
what are we talking about?
Tax increase.
I came in at a great time.
better than the bathroom.
We're telling solve the world's problems.
Gave us a little history.
He gave us a history.
Okay,
I
thank
just reviewed.
Yeah, you gave us some history.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So to correct what we were talking, 47,520, Kelsey just sent me a screenshot from the packet, was paid for heart monitors from ARPA grant as of right now.
That's what it is.
It's nothing to do with the budget.
Now, so I'm at $80,000 in potential savings.
Mary, you
With-
put an 80 with the 2 cents increase?
No, I'm at $80,000 with potential reductions
Oh, okay, you said savings.
so far, and I've got the 41 in speculative reductions. Now,
That's putting us at 179 as a balance.
well, and that's getting to my point. We can get to the 220 with 2 cents and impact fees. The 80 and 41, my recommendation to this group, if you're comfortable with it, would be to slide that into contingency. Because it's not certain, and that gets us closer to that 325 number. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It gets closer to the
325.
325.
I do think that's the realistic deficit that we're looking at.
Well,
We
and
agree.
I want to just say that we're getting closer to 325.
Yeah,
If
no, I
the
agree.
group's okay with that.
When you were out of the room, I was just asking, and I know we keep not making motions, but the straw poll or whatever it takes to, because we do want to let the public know what we're leaning towards with the tax rate. I was looking to see where, I'm assuming my colleague to the left here, he's putting forward a different proposal. That I'm assuming would be a nay on the 2 cent increase, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I know we're not to the point, but I do think if there's a consensus for that, we should let the public know.
And the thing is that I think we would all like to get to a flat tax rate, but I don't think that's realistic this year. And when we're looking at 220 or 325, keep in mind, and I've said this multiple times, that staff and the council and myself included, through a series of meetings, have reduced the deficit from what? It was almost $600,000 when we started, down to 325 or 220, depending on how you see that number. So there's been a lot of work in this budget, and none of that is fluff. Like, a lot of that is operational needs, a lot of that are the things that our staff are asking for, not for themselves, but for the people of Berlin and to keep our infrastructure in a place where it's sound. So when we say 2 cents, we don't say 2 cents lightly. The push-ups have been done. The ability to run this budget through on the treadmill has been done. And 2 cents is kind of where we have landed. So if somebody sees a different path forward, I'm
And I think that's a real tough nut on top of the assessments that are out there.
Yeah.
And that is a huge, huge hit.
Do you see a path that we're overlooking? I mean, I don't like it, but
Again, if you look at Steve's recommendation, or the recommendation for the pay study, that's 153,000. You got 80,000 here. You got potentially another 41. I think you're close.
if we're close, that can get us to zero, and we gotta be at zero.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't do a small incremental tax increase, but 2 cents is a hard hit.
What number do you feel comfortable with? And what's realistic? That's what I'm asking, like, knowing those things, like, what do you see as the increase?
I think you could do 1 cent and cover everything else.
Natalie, is that doable?
So what I hear, you're gonna reduce the contingency for wage study to 150, releasing 50 to other expenses?
When you say contingency, what?
Right now,
That's your salary.
right now,
No,
in
yeah, that's for salary.
contingency, we have 200
Right.
to be allocated to the wage study, so.
Right.
funds.
If we
So
do that-
you would like to reduce that to 150,
Current 153.
153?
No, that's the savings, right?
I'm sorry,
I'm asking, I don't know.
Yeah, they don't have this, but so what I
I don't have
proposed,
those numbers, I don't understand what we're coming from and what.
This is the cap. These are the cap.
it's the cap. It's putting a 1-year cap on the increases
And not doing year two.
for some of the employees that are over, there's 13 positions that are.
I'm just asking. So that year two is speculative, we'll leave year two out.
So for Natalie's question of what
Yeah.
to change the $200,000 contingency,
To 153 instead of 200.
153,747, correct? Or call it 154.
Call it 155.
Yes.
Natalie likes
So
it.
You're reading this one right
that's
here.
45,000 we just released
That's
from
the-
contingency.
That's-
I'm sorry,
That
but
one- Oh,
taking one-time pay, allowing people to wait 2 years, and not touching anybody else who's not
47,
eligible
47.
for the step.
Well, it depends what route you guys go, but if they go the step and grade system, every employee will see something.
down, and
Everybody's
let's,
impacted.
And
hold
I
on.
said that if you have to weigh the two, I would think that everybody would like their salary impacted if you had to get rid of something, as much as no one wants to see the one-time payment go, but I would think that that would be more beneficial to staff than a one-time payment.
But
to
I've
see
heard
it
13
impact.
people, but that's not everybody.
But no, hold
Yeah,
on.
it's,
So,
it's,
but I think that in an effort to make sure, there are a lot of different pathways to pursue with the salary study. There are a lot of different ways to interpret the findings of the study, which is why it's still a draft. But if the body is saying, hey, look, I said as the mayor, I'd like to see $200,000 in there to cover potentially what we need in the general fund. It was an arbitrary number when I put it in there. It actually came in somewhere close to where we were. Now, if the body says, hey, look, rewrite that, you got $150,000 make due, then that's what we'll have to do. But 200 is in there right now, and it's open to discussion.
And I'm just saying, adjusting that,
Adjusting it down 47,000 is the equivalent to what,
45.
almost, what's that?
Adjusting by 45,000,
okay, so that's
just round it up.
equivalent of 1 cent on the tax dollar. Yeah.
It's close, but it's not there.
We're
What's
at
a
179 right now without the monitors.
what's a penny on the tax rate?
51,526.
600.
That's a rough estimate.
So it's close to a
let's
penny, but
call
it's not
it
there.
50,000
Yeah.
per penny. So that's 95. We're at 179.
So we're hitting the staff double. We're hitting the staff by cutting the contingency from 200 to 150, and then doing away with the one-time payment.
Correct.
Yeah. Again, do we want to do this on the back of our staff? I don't
The
think so.
majority of the staff is getting their full amount.
But I really don't think so. And Jed, indeed, I understand what you are proposing. But to do this as a result of, we're pretty much cutting, our cuts are related to staff. And I just can't go along with that. I really can't. Again, we have waited until the last thing to do is to put this on the backs of our staff, and I just can't go along.
Only the ones with very significant increases. Significant.
I understand that, and I know what those significant figures are. But what happens to those folks the second year? Now, I can't even talk this evening, but what do we say to those folks the second year?
We give them the balance. Do.
We give them the balance due.
Yeah.
That's one option.
We give them the balance due.
That would be my preference. I
I would rather have somebody trying to explain to somebody why they have to wait another year instead of just not bringing them to market value and said, this is it and this is all we're going to do, even based on the study. If we take that route, why did we have this study?
And that was a question too that was posed among staff. The idea was that the study would be conducted and then shown. And then, I think. The fear. Yeah, but I mean, it's not majority.
No.
But the idea, and it's been brought up publicly that, hey, look, the findings of the report are gonna just be set in a desk drawer and put off to the side. I've made it very clear that that's not how I want to do it. And I think that this body has made it very clear that that's not how we want to do it. Now, we're just struggling with the best way to implement the findings. But
And one-time payment was brought up when we gratefully receive it and you approve it in the middle of the year. And the comment was made, Natalie, make sure this is going to be on the budget of fiscal '24. We don't want to see that in the middle of the year, going for discussion, especially during the holidays.
yeah, if it's, and to Natalie's point, if it's not on the budget, come mid-year, that's not gonna be a topic for.
But it's also a known fact that employees want to know what they're taking home week to week. That's what they want to know, and that's what's most meaningful to them.
But
What
they
am I
also
getting
very,
today?
very appreciate that one-time pay during the holidays because they receive it up to Thanksgiving or during
Right,
Thanksgiving.
but that was when everybody was below the
Market
rate,
value.
or market value. Now we're making good on the market value.
I had a little bit of that.
But if we make good on the
But
market.
the cost of living is high, the gas is high, and the buying the gifts during Christmas is high.
I
And that's what
understand
appreciated, is getting this cash to buy a toy for a child or something else.
But in several cases, many of these increases are greater than 10% of their salary.
Yeah.
That is a huge increase for an employee to get.
And again, you're discussing that to postpone it to year two. So
Right.
that's not gonna be 10% in one time.
But in some years, in some cases it is, I use
Some
some
cases,
cap number of
it is,
8,000.
yeah.
Employees making 60,000 and all of a sudden.
I think it's very difficult to have the discussion related to the pay study because
We
this
only-
group is the only
we're the
group
ones
that's
who
seen it.
see it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, we're talking about something
That's what's hard
that,
about this.
right, so I would encourage the group to not discuss the pay study as the pay study per se,
Yeah.
but to discuss the contingency balance. And if this body says you got $1, we'll make $1 work. But you gotta live with what those effects are.
When are we gonna be discussing this salary thing?
That's why I wanted to bring it up tonight.
Yeah,
And I probably opened a can
We
of worms,
really
but I
need
feel
to
like it's a
talk about
healthy
it.
conversation.
But you
It's a
guys,
difficult-
both of you were in the meeting.
It's a difficult conversation.
Yeah, both of you were in the meeting.
It's a difficult conversation to have because the way the study is laid out, and because we are a very small organization, individual employees are readily identifiable.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You will never get away from that. That is why it was being discussed in closed session. And the state statute does allow for instances when individual employees are readily identifiable to have those conversations behind
But the
closed doors.
consultant said he could discuss this study in general terms so that no one could be identified.
And we said we
That's
were
the
gonna,
discussion I want
And
to
that is
have.
what we're asking
That
for him to
is the public
submit.
discussion that I want to have.
What I
we are
would
going,
suggest-
hold on one second. But we are going to have that public discussion. We have not said that we wouldn't.
All I'm asking is when.
Well, in the meeting, we had discussed the idea that we were going to work through some of the homework that we have on behalf of the consultant. And that at that point, we were going to re-explore. We even discussed as a group in that meeting that potentially the budget would have to be passed with a contingency balance. And then in the months, the first few months of FY '24, we would then have a plan that the council could act on. We discussed that, you, Councilmember Green, myself, our town administrator, Mary Boland, Kelsey, our human resources director was there, and our attorney, David Gaskell, was there. We discussed all of that. And to my knowledge, that has been shared with everybody, that the work product that we have thus far and the plan. And if that's not, then there it is. So now, I
So,
would encourage
as
us
the
to discuss
So as
the
the
contingency.
CEO of the administrative branch, what would you recommend?
I've already made my
I
recommendation,
usually do.
200, I've made my recommendation
But
very
it's,
clear.
but it's more than 2,000 either way, so what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is $200,000 in contingency.
So that's it, it's, we work with 200,000
Correct. And that,
for the salaries
And he was recommending a 2 cent.
and the 2 cent increase.
and some
And-
movement with impact fees.
Impact fees and
That's it. Then, I'm
What do you mean
grateful,
by movement, like impact fees?
Increasing.
utilizing impact fees to cover
To
one-time
cover,
costs.
to cover
Now-
the deficit.
A discussion of whether or not to increase them will occur,
Right, but I
but
meant,
that's not.
yeah, no, I meant what you meant by using impact.
Using impact
Pulling.
fees for one-time costs in FY '24.
Like
Now,
what? Like aren't impact fees kind of reserved for construction?
we are using HURs, highway user revenues, to cover a street project. You can use impact fees for the street project, and HURs to offset some of the public works costs. It's just moving.
So
the-
just moving, okay.
Now, I also am encouraged by the group's discussion of the $80,000 in savings, and I think that number should be moved, separate and aside from the 200, into contingency to get us closer to the group and Councilmember Green's thought of 325. So I would say the 80, and then if we get to the 41, that gets us closer to the 325 number.
So you're saying 80
Still
impact
keeping-
fees
Yep.
and two
No,
cents?
no. So solving the deficit
Yeah, I hear you.
of the 220, right?
2 cents in impact fees.
2 cents, impact fees,
Yep.
that's solved.
But 80 is there because what the county is outside of our control.
We're trying to get to 325.
Yes,
So to get to 325, 80,041 should get us to 325 and have a little extra.
right, that's
If
what,
we can possibly make those reductions.
right, I'm saying, but the 80 isn't here. The 80 we can do.
80
The
we
other
can do.
two is question, the
Correct.
41 is questionable.
Correct.
So like I said, 80, or 80, 20 cents, and impact fees. That right now,
82 cents.
That's only 120.
right,
2 cents.
2 cent increase. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I was just correcting you.
Yes,
You
yes.
said 20.
I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to be clear, we were not
And my-
going 20 cents.
And my brain thought I said 2, I'm sorry.
So once again,
So this
I've heard a theory on 1 cent, I've heard a theory on 2 cents, and I agree with the 2 cent theory so far. Does anybody see a different path forward? Speak now.
None that I want to share today.
Yeah, but I mean, do you see, so you've said, so you started with town hall renovations and unassigning 500,000. You've discussed how you would reallocate that. Okay, 400,000. You've discussed some reallocations to that. Does that mean that with your plan of the reallocations, you're at what tax rate?
The way I had it figured here on my notes is there would be no need to increase the taxes.
Okay. So you're at a 0
So
cent.
I'm at, well, wait,
Maintain.
constant.
Okay.
Point.
Please not say constant.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
Say
sorry.
Scaled is a
No,
whole
sorry,
nother, we had that.
A
conversation.
0 cent,
unchanged.
a 0 cent.
Unchanged.
Okay. Any other theories out there?
Lots of theories.
We can leave the line in the ordinance blank. It's not preferable, because then,
I don't think it's transparent either. I think that we go to
Exactly.
83 and a half for the introduction, but I'm trying to hear if there's something we've missed. And I hear you at 1 cent, but that is moving on the contingency balance. And I'm not there yet, but if we could move on that, I'd be open to adjusting that if we.
So I guess what I'd like to see is a revised draft budget with these new numbers plugged in.
Certainly,
That would be beneficial.
before we act on the tax rate, we'll have that. So before Monday night. And that should
You
make it
acted on the tax rate
Monday night.
April
Monday.
20.
this is what they submitted.
So, all right, 2, 0,
I'm not ready to say.
that's fine. 2, 1, Councilmember Nichols,
I'm sorry, what, I wasn't.
do you have a different theory on the tax rate? 2, 1, 0?
Right this moment, no, I
Okay,
don't.
that's an acceptable answer too.
Well, I'm sorry, yes.
All right,
that's-
can we move on from the tax rate discussion?
Do you have
Okay.
a rate that you would like to
Is
plug
that-
into
Are you
the
okay to move
ordinance?
on? Tax rate discussion. Do you have all your
If
information?
you give me right now the number for tax rate.
It'll be introduced at
the rate,
83 and a half.
83 and a half, and you would like me to rerun the budget at 83 and a half.
Please, with
Is that
the,
correct?
with the $80,000 in reductions that we discussed.
80,000 is still cutting off the budget.
Correct, but that $80,000 savings, please move to contingency,
So increase the contingency to
280. And right now, what we also need to do is follow up with the chief and cards. The cards is $21,000 in IT servers, and the chief is $20,000 in car cameras. If those expenditures can be postponed to FY '25, that should save $41,000. We would like that in contingency as well at this time.
And my understanding, that's
That's just to get us to 325.
because if
Just to
122
get,
does not
just to get us
come.
to 325, and let's talk later. Please.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be quiet
No,
because
no,
I'm so
no,
pro
I'm-
employees right now.
No,
This
no,
is
that's
the-
not-
this
that's
is the
nothing
message
against-
we're sending again.
That is
We're
nothing
moving the
against that.
cuts to set aside to fund something else.
We have not done that. The,
I'm not, Natalie, that's not what everybody
We
said.
have
That's
not
not
done
what
that.
we're saying as a whole. It's not. It's a suggestion by some, and I'm not saying that it's not a good suggestion, but that is not what we're saying as a whole, because that wasn't even my thought at all. But I don't have anything that I feel comfortable stating at the moment, because there are some things that I'm completely still questioning as far as the whole budget, so.
Then leave it the way it is, don't move the 80,000 out of the budget line items, don't move it to contingency, discuss it, adopt the rate, and then discuss it further at the rate adoption date.
I think in order
We're
to get the,
restructuring the budget to move the 80,000, which is one-time payment, the reduction of health insurance, which is great, and removing the money from the parks to contingency.
but in order to get our tax rate, an action on the tax rate, the council should see the budget with some of those changes that we've discussed. So I would encourage that, so that they can see that before Monday night.
So just so that we're absolutely clear, the
Right.
number that we want to plug into the tax rate ordinance is .835.
Correct. Thank you. And thank you all for your feedback as well. If something else comes up that you see that we can do, I'm open to suggestions, we all are. Let's move on to the enterprise utility funds overview and our town administrator at one point.
There are 4 funds. I'm sure that most of you are quite familiar with this, but we'll review it quickly, mostly for the public's benefit, so that there's no misunderstanding. There are 4 funds that operate and run independently and provide a public service. The electric fund, water fund, wastewater fund, and stormwater fund. Those are enterprise or utility funds. They operate not from tax revenue dollars, but from user rates, the monies that are directly paid for the services. The electric department is a little bit different in that they recover their costs through the power cost rate per kilowatt, still paid by the users, but it's not as direct and I may be misstating this, and I'll invite Tim or Natalie to correct me if I do stray too far. It is not quite the same as water rate bills in that it's not based on, if they use a gallon of water, you pay for a gallon of water. It's more of the purchase power cost that we're recovering. And that rate for electric is reviewed and approved by the Public Service Commission. To discuss the electric department first, the electric personnel deal with a variety of tasks that carry very important functions for the town's electrical services. The services from the electric department ensure that we have uninterrupted electric service, and by comparison to other utilities, we virtually do have uninterrupted electric service. The occasional outage that we have is rare and very quickly dealt with. They ensure compliance by the town's electric utility with regulations through maintenance, repair, and upgrades to the electric system and power plant. The Water Resources Fund covers the 3 enterprise funds of water, sewer, and stormwater. Sewer fund is the most complex and an expensive fund to operate. Berlin's wastewater treatment plant is somewhat unique to operate because instead of discharging treated wastewater as most municipalities do, ours treats sewer and then carries the cleared water to the spray sites, which then spray the effluent to irrigate forest lands. The water service, the town's water production comes from wells located in the town and is also a complex process requiring personnel with specialized training and certifications as required by state and federal regulations. All water resource funds generate revenues through service fees. Water and sewer are billed by gallons, and stormwater fees are based on dwelling units or equivalent dwelling units of the properties in the town. The stormwater fund is the youngest and smallest of the funds, and to date has been the main funding to match stormwater project grants. The funding that we receive in the stormwater utility is a key to the number of grants that we have been able to leverage that we never could have funded on our own. All of the enterprise funds employees work diligently to ensure the operation of these utility services for the comfort, health, and well-being of our residents, businesses, and visitors.
It's very nice.
I like how,
Yes, it was.
Thank you,
Yes, it was.
Natalie gave me props.
That's great.
I like how you said the stormwater fund is our youngest.
So, yeah, that's how it works.
I like that, good job.
It's the
Collaboration,
baby.
guys.
Yes,
Yes.
it was.
It's teamwork.
So,
Because I'll tell you, coming back from vacation, I was not ready for this.
well, thank you, we appreciate it. So let's move on to 5A, which is the water fund revenue overview, and our finance director, Natalie Slay, is going to run point.
Water, I was gonna go to.
Did we miss election?
I'm sorry, you wanted to go where?
No.
Water first.
Water.
I had a question.
Okay, what's your question?
What was for electric? Is that after? Is that after?
Electric is after, yes.
Okay, sorry. I don't have my
All
agenda.
that's happening, but I have
Page 15.
Water.
Page 15 in the packet, don't look at the report pages, on the packet pages, page 15. So water revenues, basically what I've done as I've done in the past, I look at prior years and kind of compare and see if we have new services or how many new services. I also discuss it with Dave to see how many new constructions we're gonna have coming in the town, commercial, residential. And that helps me to estimate any increases for the water services, also for the special connection fees. Special connection fees, those coming from the new developments, discussed and estimated to be at 60 units, and water fund gets $4,425 per EDU. So we are projecting to receive $265,500 in fiscal '24. It's a slight decrease, or it's going to be a bigger decrease because fiscal '23 is not set to receive all of them that we budgeted. For water capital service fee, that's a newer fee that we have adopted to set aside. It's basically budget neutral. We have this fee budgeted as revenue, but also we set it aside as the capital fund reserve, capital fee reserved for future capital projects, water related and sewer related. Water services, a slight increase just based on new services connected. Ready to serve, it is a decrease because the number of ready to serve been paid in fast, either already developed or connected to lines. So they stopped paying the fee, the monthly fee that basically reserve a water connection. Services and material, it's everything that water department crew does outside of normal just water sales. Installation, material, construction, water related, and we bill either developer or residential and receive reimbursement for that. Water tower rent, we allow satellite dishes to be placed on the top of the water tower, and we charge them for that service, $65,000.
Natalie, how do they determine that fee? What we should charge?
We have a lease in place, basically it's amount determined, and we just bill them and we pay the invoice.
Right, but is it something that's negotiated, or?
Yes, it's
Do they propose that figure, or?
It was kind of mutual.
Yeah.
It was, they proposed it and the town looked at other sources, what they were getting.
We look at what other communities get, they look at what they're paying in other communities.
That's what I was getting at.
And we're very lucky because there's some municipalities around us don't charge them for being on their water tower. So even though now they brought up this is what we make revenue, it goes back into our maintenance of our water towers also. So I mean, it's not a pass-through, but it's maintenance of the inspections, painting. You know, our towers get painted every 5 years, exterior, interiors every 15 years, and it takes care of all of our maintenance too. So that helps offset the costs from the town footing the bill. It pays for a lot of that work.
Right.
Interest earned is the allocated cash dedicated to the water fund, then basically interest-bearing accounts in the bank. Interest on delinquent, $5,500. It's basically what it is, delinquency on paying the utility bills. Some miscellaneous income, this amount we normally charge if there is some recycling for old water meters or some miscellaneous revenue that is not kind of belong to the line item. Contribution from reserve, this line item is complicated, it's a large amount, but we can go line by line. All of them, pretty much all of the line items belong to capital projects, and some of them are carried forward. So Powelton Avenue well building that been ARPA funded in this fiscal year, that project is not going to be completed. So we carry forward $285,000 to the next year. Powelton Avenue building replacement, there's additional funding needed. Now, this is not ARPA, it's just estimated costs went up. So $100,000 being allocated additional on fiscal '24 to allow that project to go on and be completed. $300,000 is carry forward for smart meters installation, not the actual smart meters, but the contracted services. It's a carry forward and is ARPA funded. Special connection reserve, 270 is an advancement from EDU reserve to cover the difference that will come from water capacity management plan. You will see it later on in the capital projects. Franklin Avenue well house number 2 to connect it to the sewer for $10,000 and $200,000 for William Street lead lines replacement project. That's the number is going to be here to fund those 3 projects. William Street lead lines actual project is on the fiscal '23 budget under different name, but we're going to carry this amount forward. And Jimmy will talk about it when he talks about capital. It's a bigger priority for the future.
So any questions about the revenue for the water fund?
Can you share where we are with the smart meter installation?
Yes, we actually had a pre-bid meeting last week. It was mandatory for the people to show up. We should be expecting bids in May 11th, Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock. We will be opening them. That gives us 2 weeks to get back in front of you at the last meeting in May so we can have a recommendation to move forward. It's supposed to start within 30 days of award of contract. So we're looking somewhere in July, August range for them to be here to start.
Okay. And the duration of that contract?
120 days, calendar days. Now, some of them might ask for time extensions because there's some very large meters that are going to be complex, like AGH, the nursing home. A lot of that's going to be night work due to the fact that we're going to have to shut water off to the building at Galt Creek. The hospital has a bypass line, so we can actually feed them, but it's a smaller line. So there's going to be some night work involved and some scheduling. And we have Galt Creek, the nursing home, so we have some places we will have to, and then a couple of the schools we're going to have to work with them because the meters are in the center of the school, so we have to get the wires out for the transmitters to transfer their readings.
We believe we've allowed more than enough time, but there is always a possibility of running into unexpected things.
So October, November?
Yes, sir.
I think Jamie gave himself a margin of error and said before December, right?
Yes. And I just, the other thing they're going to ask for if they get to somewhere is the water line plus on them, instead of them being able to put 5 or 10 meters in that day, they only get 1 in. So I mean, there's going to be some, it's all going to be determined on Mary and myself that, it's a justifiable cause that this happened. I mean, right now, what we presented to them the other day, there's roughly 936 services they need to dig up on both sides for the lead service line replacement program. So we're doing a lot of our, I know it sounds the 120 days are long, but to determine with the EPA, the new EPA rule, they're giving you a couple of years to do it, but since we're doing our water meter replacement, we're looping it all in as one. So it's actually benefiting us, so we'll be ahead of a lot of the other municipalities and cities in the state of Maryland.
And we will be able to bill on actual use.
Yes, sir. We should be able to build down to the gallon.
Gallon.
the meter guy says we can go down to the 1/10 of a gallon. I think that's stretching it, but I'll take a gallon. I mean,
I'll take a gallon.
and there's a couple, so there's a couple, you know, actually, Jack, you brought up a good point. That meter will tell you that if you have a drip. I know a lot of people, like I say, it's Big Brother, but if your house has a water usage for overnight, so most people go to bed at 10 o'clock to 4 a.m., just saying. If you have a constant water usage at that night, it will set, when we come in the morning, we can go download our meters, and I can go knock on your door and say, you have something running. Instead of 30 days out. It could be 45 days out. If we read your meter on June 1st, you got billed July 4th, July 1st, we read it, and then we reread it, so another 15 days, so you could be 45 days out with a leak that you had no clue about. So I think this is a big plus for the town, and, a lot of places, our meter guy told us, he says, a lot of towns go from touch read like we do, to the drive-by, then to the town, to like a gateway like we're going. He said, you all circumvented the drive-by, you all went right to the water tower, or the gateways, and they like that.
So I mean, this is probably a silly question, but with all the antenna and whatnot where's the reader going? Is it going on the water tower?
There's two of them. There'll be one on the 346 East Water Tower and the Franklin Avenue Water Tower.
So with all the antenna that's on there,
It will not
it's
affect
secure
anything.
and nothing's gonna
No,
happen?
sir.
They will have a
Sound like a
refresh.
plan, Jamie, sound like a plan.
Well, it's I think that's the best way to go. I mean, there's a couple other options we could have went, but this is the most practical, feasible for the town. The other thing I would like, it'll be probably in next year's budget, and I'll put it in here now. I know a lot of people in town have been asking, can we see our water usage, what we use at our residence? I think let us get the meters in and get some time under our belt, but I think it's gonna cost a little bit more money, but, people wanna see it, but I think this will get us some time under our belt to get familiar with our end.
Right.
But then the residents and the ladies downstairs setting up the accounts so that people can see.
Online.
Well, we also, we're
It's an
anticipating that
additional-
6-month review,
Yes.
get all the
Yeah.
details and stuff, okay.
So so hopefully by July of next budget, we should have a good figure and number for you.
Yep. Thanks, Jamie.
I think that's a perfect gateway into administration's expenses. For the water fund.
Is there questions?
Oh.
Okay, so, water revenue, we will move to the water administration, and Jamie's gonna take over and just go over the significant changes from the current budget. I guess bypassing, personnel and et cetera, just discuss the items that are new or increased and touch on the capital projects.
The biggest thing I see on the first page is water capacity management plan. We have to update this because our wastewater is at 750,000 gallons per day and our drinking water is at 500. So we need to get a new capacity management plan to keep up with our wastewater. So it's a 2-year project, and it's also, we're looking at doing some scoping work for a 4th drinking water well for the town.
And I'm just, I'm not gonna ask too many questions, but we're anticipating that to be cheaper, given the price of everything? It's a decrease of 27,000, so is that?
It's a different capital project.
Yeah, so last year was
You
different.
compare
Okay.
capital projects that consist of 87 of different projects to 60,000, only one project they're gonna
Okay.
anticipate to finish.
Thank you.
We've increased employee training, which goes across the board since we switched to a new chemical. So we try to make sure everybody's caught up on the new chemical for the treatment or the wells.
And so for simplicity, we centralized all of the training and travel under admin for all of the utility funds. Just not to be,
It makes it a little bit
larger
easier.
amounts is not just for the
That makes more
utility
sense
fund.
to me.
Does anybody have any questions on that page? And then we're on.
You're on page 18, right?
Yeah.
Just note for the council, there will be some additional changes made to contingency. There is no contingency there currently. We're going to act to try and get a contingency of enough to be able to cover our payrolls study in that balance, so just a note.
And then on to water treatment. As Natalie said, the biggest thing would be capital outlay, which she went over Franklin Avenue, that connected to the sewer, Powell Avenue. I asked for an extra $100,000 for the building, because everything's been way over budget. And I don't want to come here and ask for $285,000, the building comes in at $330 or something. I know I asked for probably a little bit more than what I should, but everybody's been, the square footage of what the restroom over Steve Decatur was coming in at, I thought it was a fair value to increase it that much. And that building is not tied to the sewer, so we have to tie that into the sewer also. The other biggest thing is chemicals went up. I mean, that's across the board of everything with everything we've seen here lately. And then on to water distribution, does anybody have any questions on? Water distribution, so you see the smart meter down at the bottom, and then I've asked for a William Street lead line replacement program. The reason I asked to do William Street, I was told about 2 months ago, right when we first started our budget, the state highway planned on milling and paving William Street. They frowned very hard on you going in there tearing up their new blacktop. It's like an act of God to get a permit to do anything. So I spoke with Mary and I presented it to Mary and asked her what her thought was of trying to beat the state highway and to change out. There's about 78, we're thinking about 78 lead services on this street, and that would put us in a very good thing with the state and the EPA, so we would be probably ahead of a lot of people. So Mary was in agreement to that, to start that program, and we've started with Josh working on, because there's a couple services that need to be upgraded, and that would be putting us ahead of the EPA mandated timeframe too for changing out lines.
Jamie, what percentage of the town still remains on lead line?
There's roughly 1,985 water services in town, and there's roughly 936 we're going to dig up for test pitting because of lead service, so about half. That's what we've come up with, the best scenario through GIS. David Bonafidel came over, we rode the town. There's ones we've changed out, so in the last 23 years that I've been working here, I've tried to point out the ones that I know we've changed out, the stuff that we've done, corrected, and stuff like that. But there's roughly 936 lines we're going to have to possibly have still have lead.
On the topic of water distribution, I had said that we hired 2 new employees that did not decide to take town insurance. So that is where part of that savings is coming in, if you wanted to make note of that. It's water distribution, the health insurance, employee health insurance is looking more like $5,000 estimate there, and health claims would go down to about $2,000. So overall, it'd be an $8,000 savings in health claims, and then roughly $18,000 in employee health insurance in that department. So now that's not, I mean, as far as I know, they're not gonna plan to elect it, but anyone can choose to elect insurance at any point. We budgeted what they currently have, and right now they have currently elected to not enroll in health insurance,
So we typically do try to sort of over budget on those, because if the employee comes forward and says that I want it, we do have to go to.
I would caution shifting that whole savings out, just in the event that staff does turn over.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is what we do every year.
Yes.
So say if every year I
This is-
don't have health insurance, I'm gonna budget for myself next year that I'm not gonna have health insurance.
Yeah.
But if new hires, I budget a full family, just thinking if we brought someone on, they usually either elected in the beginning or they don't elect in the beginning because they're on spouses or something like that. So, but that's not to say anyone can't elect to change, in the next open enrollment, but as of right now, they have not chosen to take our health insurance due to spousal coverage, so.
Does that get you through your stuff for the water fund?
The only other thing is that we were going to change out some valves on William Street while we did it. And that would complete the water fund. I will say that ballpark figure, if we get ahead of the state highway, would probably save, I would think, somewhere in the ballpark of about $500,000 for paving, if not a little bit more. So that's our main reason why Mary and I acted on it and moving forward. Because I think it would look nice that, you know, we're not gonna have any leaks and stuff on that street for numerous years, and the pavement and all that stuff would be cut up. So that's
I
my,
think that's good,
I mean,
proactive and good
I
thinking.
feel like
think
it's
that's-
important to allow the
I mean-
departments the flexibility to make those adjustments when the opportunity
Yeah, absolutely.
arrives.
It makes sense.
Now, there is no deficit as presented within the fund, but we do have a little bit of a challenge that we'll have to overcome as far as the appropriate allocation of
Right, but I
contingency.
think we will be okay with not having deficit with the savings from the health claims and the healthcare, because the amount that I've heard for water needed for wage study, my understanding is all of the water resources. It will need to be split between water and sewer. So 38,000, 36,000 will stay in contingency, and then I will know how much more we need, and then we'll plan accordingly. But
Thank
I
you.
will need to know soon before the introduction.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the water fund?
The only thing I want to just point it out that is new, that was not on the budget or previous budget, that we do plan to use 270,000 from the EDU for capital projects, which the EDU intended to be collected, set aside for future capital projects and debt services. So 270 here is to fund 200,000 for William Street lead lines replacement project, 60,000 for water management, and 10,000 for the Franklin Avenue Well House number 2.
Any questions regarding that? Any questions regarding the water fund revenue or expenditure? Thank you, Jamie. If not, we'll move on to wastewater's overview. We'll start with revenue, if you don't mind.
Revenue, so sewer fund as general, we kind of go with 60-40. To operate sewer fund is much more complex and more expensive in general, and the sewer revenues is a little bit on the higher side. Looking at special connection fees, $12,261 out of total of one EDU going to the sewer side, estimated sewer side fund. Estimated 60 units at $735,660. HOLA fees, we're leaving, even though you see an increase, but we're leaving that amount unchanged from fiscal 23 budget because they don't have any assurance that all of the contractors will participate and will utilize the water treatment plant. So the revenues will come above those overages, pretty much earmarked for fluctuation of the capital projects if they come over the cost that's been estimated. Same situation with the sewer capital service fee. That fee is a budget neutral. It's a revenue collected but then set aside for future capital projects or improvement or emergency repairs. Ready to serve is $102,000, slight decrease due to the connection to the services. Services and material, I just put a small amount in case we do have something recorded under that line item, but it's not much more. Sewer service is an increase for the new connection and new services connected to the town, $2,220,000. Spray site land rent, it's a small amount, gets billed for, Jamie,
we have,
drug land.
yes, we have a little bit of land at Sprays Lake B in Newark, and we release it out to a local farmer so we can,
Yes.
so we don't have to keep the grass cut and maintain it.
A slight increase on the interest earned monies in interest-bearing account at Bank of Ocean City. Interest on delinquent is basically non-paid in time utility bills. Contribution from reserve is a large amount. Carry forward items from prior year Broad Street lift station funded by ARPA of $1 million. Debt services advancement to cover the debt service for current year of $559,800. Lee Road paved and spray side, which will be covered by HOLA fees of $50,000. And treatment plant upgrades, again, polo fees of $105,000.
Jamie, where are we on the Broad Street station? I know we were kind of
We had
moving
a,
along, but
we're moving very along quickly. I think we were getting close with Tim and getting the transformers all ordered. And, okay, so they're ordered and Tim has a deadline of about a year.
Something like that.
Yes, so we didn't want to build a new lift station because it could be done in 6 months versus waiting a year. So we're going to wait until we can make sure we have power for the lift station when we get closer.
okay.
So, but I should think,
How's it looking over there? I mean, is it hanging in?
yes, it's doing well. I mean,
Okay.
it's still maintenance. I mean, yes, knock on wood, but, you know, we're still maintaining and everything. I would venture to say, I'll talk with Josh Thursday. We have a meeting with him. I know there was a couple little odds and ends they had to finish up on. One of them was the asbestos remediation. Like I said, from day one, the roof had its asbestos, so there was a couple things we had to finish up on our end and their end to make sure. Pretty much I told them, I said, I know it's hard to do, but when we go to a job, I don't want to see a change order come in. So sometimes it's out of our hands, sometimes it happens, but we're doing the best we can do due diligence so we don't have to change order. So I would venture to say we should see something within the next 2 months to go in front of you, month and a half, for a RFP to go out for design, or not design, but construction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions regarding water fund, or wastewater fund revenues? All right, let's move on to wastewater expenditures, please.
Most of the first page is all of our contracted services, so that pretty much carries everything. We have the software, engineering services, the generator services, all our lift station monitor stuff, and then Miss Utility and our outside contractors.
The lift station monitoring stuff, you said that's like the equipment, right, that goes in and floats?
Yes, well, it has,
The sensors and whatnot?
yes, we have high tide lift station monitoring. We have 13 on the wastewater, 4 on the water side. Pretty much we can't manually or physically control anything from our phone, but we can see what's going on, which I think in recurrence to having that has cut down on rebuilding of pumps and stuff like that, because we can see if a pump's ragged up, so we can go out and pull it quicker. So there's a lot of stuff with it. I mean, I know it sounds just a little bit of money, but it's it's been a very wise investment, I do believe.
It's very important.
Yes. Right now, probably with some of the stuff that's happened in the state of Maryland, sooner or later, you're going to be required to have it on anything for your wastewater anyway, some kind of monitoring device.
Thank you.
Capital, just have a new pickup in there, like, as the mayor said earlier, just, we gotta keep up on our maintenance schedule, or we haven't bought a new truck in water and wastewater since 2017 or 2018. So, I mean, that's just stuff we have to keep up on too. There's not much other that has changed really big on the page 1, or page,
What is the big number?
yes, I think mine are different, than mine's 24, so I'm 1 page behind.
The pickup truck that is in Sewers replaced a 2009 Ford F-150.
And this is the current price, $60,000?
Well, I was going off of what Tim and Jimmy paid.
Hey,
No, I'm just saying, I just used their number and just inflated it a little bit, because I don't, you know, it can come in less, and I mean, I just don't want to come back up here and ask you, well, I got $50,000 and it's $52,000 or $55,000. So I'd rather be a little bit,
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was just asking. I didn't know if that's where they are these days.
no,
That's where they are.
Yeah.
I don't know what Tim paid for his, so I kind of pulled their number, or Natalie did, and just used their number, what they did.
Jamie,
60.
Yes, sir.
tell me about, camera truck software.
So we pay, every year we have to pay for the camera truck software. It's pretty much like the.
Camera.
Yes. It's just like how the town pays for IT. We have to keep up on that, because if something happens,
It's a support.
it's a support. If you don't pay for it
Okay.
and something happens, then it could cost you 20, 25,000. You know, I mean, just pull numbers out, so. We just pay that because it supports us. I mean, if anything happens, we've had to get a new monitor and stuff, and it took care of a lot of that stuff.
But it's this camera that you,
Yes, sir, used in the sewer.
yeah, okay.
Go down the main lines sewer, main lines, storm drains and all that stuff.
It's the clean cap.
Take some pretty pictures.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're on page 27 of our packet, and
And that's all for administration.
I do want to note contingency on page 27 will be adjusted to reflect the pay study.
Natalie, what's this 19% interest reimbursement bond payment towards the bottom?
The principal,
No, 2450, 6505.
Just above that.
6505.
It's the bond obligation.
Reimbursement is it's a spread from the debt that's been transferred, and now each fund participates in paying back the interest. It's not 19% of interest, it's 19% of the total interest.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, no.
Makes me feel better.
It's going back, no,
It's a good rate, isn't it?
it's not a rate.
That was a bad deal.
It's the amount that goes back to general fund, the bonds have been shifted around, and general fund pays the full amount, and then each fund pays the reimbursement, the reimbursed 19% of interest. Now, the actual debt service is the last two line item, the bond principal and the bond interest, that's what I thought you were asking. So those are all of the outstanding debts for the sewer fund.
Any questions? Actually, no, we're rolling through that. We'll ask the questions about the sewer fund at the end.
Ken, this one has another salary or health insurance. This is, those positions that I was referring to are split between the other department and this department. So again, for 245810, employee health insurance, if we were going off what they currently have elected, it should be a $5,000 cost there, so $18,000 savings. And again, health claims, it should be $2,000 going off what they currently have elected, so an $8,000 savings for an overall of $26,000.
All right, I think we're on the collection.
15 and 2.
Selection system.
Yes, down at the bottom, capital outlay. And just so everybody knows on the collection system, 5810, 5252. The reason it's so high this year, we did have a force main leak, and that's where it's supposed to come out of. Even though it's just, everybody thinks force main, so that's why it's higher than the year before, because, we had to fix this force main leak out on Liberty Town Road, and it's almost 9 to 10 foot deep, so time you mobilize all the equipment and get everybody in there, and it's very pricey, but. Capital outlay, Broad Street, $1 million carry forward, replacing another pickup, and that's replacing a 2014. I can't remember where it left.
That's actually, well, I think I said it too early. It is 2007. It's not Chevy Colorado.
That's on that.
That's in the spray side. So then it is 2009 Ford is what
The other
you're
one was
referencing.
replacing mine,
And yours is what?
the 2014.
2014.
So this one's 2009.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
that
The
I
one
see.
that we brought up earlier would be replacing mine, which was 2014. And then, we have West Street lift station relocation in there.
Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so, the mayor and council asked DBF to propose for the redesign West Street. So I turned all my numbers in to what we felt for water and sewer and everything. And so Natalie, since the fund was going, we left that in there. Our thought is West Street lift station right now is in the middle of the road. So if you have to do anything, we have to get Tim and his electric department there to pull the lids off, to pull the pumps. The county has a little chunk of land right beside us, 25 feet down the road. So we were talking to, I spoke with the mayor to see if we could get a 50 by 50 area, so we could put a new lift station there to get us out of the road. So it's more, one, safety, and two, the lift station's older, so it would need to be upgraded anyway.
This is work that we can do regardless of what else ever
That's what I was
happens on
gonna
West
ask.
Street.
How-
And it's on a corner of the Buckingham property that will not impact their plans for the school.
Where's the lift station on Flower
Changes.
Street? Is that?
Right in the middle of the road too, also,
Yeah.
right in front of Dean's, or Elroy's house. Sorry, Dean, I didn't mean, but I mean, it's right in front of Elroy's house. So I mean, that is another one that I am gonna come back to you within the next couple of years to ask. You know, for one, I mean,
It's not quite as easy to find a spare piece of land to put that one on, but
well,
I gotta get my plug in, you can put it in the middle of a roundabout.
well, we do,
I just had to add some humor.
we're fortunate that there, I think the town has a little bit of piece of property right down the street for
Yes.
the walkway.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's right.
I would like to-
Railroad Avenue.
I would like to put it there, but, you know, some of it, there's an engineer, you know, everything's gotta be engineered so we can still maintain the proper gravity and everything.
So, but I'm just, so what this move is not going to, whatever happens in the future with West Street, it's
Exactly.
not gonna.
Exactly.
It puts us further
Closer to-
ahead with trying to get that improved, as
then we can
opposed.
take that little piece out of the overall West Street
Right,
project.
exactly.
But it's also, this will help move the, I say move the project along, but
Cool.
this will be a part of the project already completed that, you know, I mean, you really can't run the sewer unless the lift station's in.
Right.
So if we have the lift station all done, then we can start out with the new sewer, you know.
Yeah.
We'll still tie everything in, but at least you already know where we have to start everything.
Good, okay. Thank you.
And then we'll go to treatment plant.
Page 30. On our end.
For us.
So having some stuff in there for equipment maintenance. A lot of this is just for, you know, I know you all seen the motor replacement at the treatment plant, so there was motor rebuilt. So a lot of that, you know, some of the motors have 70 and 80,000 hours on them that haven't been touched, so we're just trying to stay ahead of the game here, because if one of them go down, that could be part of the process for the treatment plant. And that's in the capital outlay, you'll see, actuator for SPR number 2. We just replaced it as an emergency, but we don't have a spare, so we'd at least like to buy a spare, because them things actuate all night long when we're not there and everything. So I'd at least like to give us a spare, so we're not having to operate it manually and somebody come in all hours of the night. Hopefully upgrade our filter. We would like to put an electric gate at the wastewater treatment plant, because it is on a dead-end street, and people like to sneak in behind you, and they get locked in, and you have to call the cops they call the cops to get out.
It's actually happening.
But it's an electric gate
They were
opener,
back
so,
in there, and the guys left without knowing that they were there.
yeah.
Who wants to be
I thought you
close?
said electric fence meeting. I
Well-
said, so what, you're gonna electrocute us against
So, but it's also, it's safety hazard, safety hazard, because we do come in, just like Tim and them, we're in at all hours of the night on a dead-end street. I mean, there's some nights that you're looking over your shoulder, so, and plus when they do some of the other stuff.
They're looking for the roundabout.
And we just keep going down here.
You took the wrong off ramp. Continued on this circle.
Serious dead end.
All right, we're getting giddy. It's getting late.
And chemicals, like I said, chemicals is another big one. I mean, it's increasing every time we order. Used to, you only got a price increase once a year, now they're every quarter, so.
Jamie, just real quick, what is sodium hypochlorite used for?
Bleach.
You ask that question each time.
So-
Is that right?
Yes.
It's bleach. Sodium hypochlorite is a bleach concentrate that is 15%.
Well, that would make sense for Clorox, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Clerks.
We have, so we have to, the reason we have to use it is our treatment plant is at Bottle Branch. Our testing point is at Lee Road. So there's 9 miles of force main it has to get to. So we have to have less than 1.8 for fecal. So we actually have to add sodium hypochlorite to kill any of the extra organisms
Yeah.
that are in the force main.
I'm just gonna put bleach. So I won't ask again. Thank you.
30,000 is a little more than one might use for laundry in a year.
Cap or two more.
Yeah,
We haven't been to my house, have you?
Yeah. Anything else you want to accent in the treatment plant?
No, I'm good there.
Let's move on to spray site.
Okay. So we'll go to capital outlay. Ford Ranger, we're replacing a 2007 Chevy Colorado. We need to replace a lawnmower due to the fact that Spray Site B, that's the only way they cut grass, so they've got a couple thousand hours on their lawnmower. And Lee Road paving, that is being funded through the septic haulers. And the road's in terrible shape from the main road to the building. Some of the guys they park outside the gate and walk up because it's that bad. It's
That's a
about
fair distance too.
3/4 of a mile, so, I mean, it's in bad shape, but
Get your steps.
that was part of that happened when we did the lagoon liner upgrade in 2012. So that should have fell back on that contract, but they wouldn't honor what I asked them
That was a mess.
The Ford Ranger replaces what?
for. 2007 Chevy Colorado. That's, I mean, they use it for everything, and they're going through the fields, checking spray heads. And there's a force management plan in there. We have to have it done for MDE every 5 years, so that has to be in there this year. And that's about it, all I have for there.
Any questions regarding the sewer fund? All right, let's move on to stormwater revenues, please.
Stormwater revenues, on the page 34, you will see DNR grant of $542,000. That is discussed with EA Engineering, and hopefully we will get awarded to move forward with the capital projects that are planned to happen in fiscal '24, and Darrell discussed all of them during the last Mayor Council meeting. So the $22,000 is hopefully be received from Chesapeake Bay Trust for Abbey Westminster, Maryland Coastal Bay Hudson Branch Stream of $110,000, Maryland Coastal Bay for Abbey and Westminster of $10,000, and Maryland Coastal Bay Nelson Franklin Pine of $400,000. Residential stormwater fee service of $144,000, and non-residential, which is a commercial properties, over $150,000. That's regular revenues received from stormwater fees. Stormwater review fee, $7,000 is a budget neutral. You will see $7,000 as stormwater review expenditure. That's when in new development fund, they have to have a review done by the engineer and as a professional. They pay the bill and then we pay to the EA. Contribution from the reserve of Nelson Franklin Pine is a carry forward of $250,000 and a carry forward of $133,000. They are all ARPA funds. They're on the budget for fiscal '23. There will be some expenditures left, so those amounts is what needed to finish the projects that funded by the ARPA grant. That's all I have for revenues.
Any questions regarding the stormwater revenues? All right, let's move on to the expenditures, please.
Yeah, Kelsey just handed me a slip here. And we will, Monday, I should be fully staffed for the first time in 2.5 years. So, our salaries will increase $9,000 and retiree will increase $1,000. I'm excited about that because that helps lighten the load a little bit, but not a lot with what we had planned. Actually, it might make it worse, but we'll figure it out.
The salary increases are related to who's filling the position. You know, they had a lot more experience than the person that was filling that position last. So we originally had the original budget in there, but this person's a lot more capable of a lot more. So I think it's going to be a good good fit there. We're excited to have him join, so.
Yeah, he starts Monday, so I'm excited. But I'm on vacation next week, so time to. So,
He knows him though, so
yeah.
so at least you're not going into a blind.
Kelsey, when you determine the pay rate for these new hirees, is it based on what we were paying or based on what was proposed?
I did look at the pay study as well. With the new one, I didn't quite hit the midpoint because I didn't know what the plan was with the pay study, but it's
Within
close.
range, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's within range, definitely.
That's good.
Yeah. So, that is something we considered when filling this, because maybe it was something you guys were considering, so.
So I'd say that probably the biggest thing down to capital improvements, adding Westminster to submerged gravel wetland. I'm sure you all are well aware, we have a meeting tomorrow night at 6 PM here, going over, we have to have a reach out meeting that affects the areas where Maryland Coastal Bays and the Chesapeake Trust makes us have these meetings. There's Hudson Branch Stream Restoration, that's the treatment plant road. And a lot of people didn't understand, but the road is, as Mary said, it's fallen in, and that is our main trunk line. It pretty much serves the town for sewer, other than Decatur Farms. And then Nelson Franklin Pine improvements. We actually, so MDE's requiring us, or it says in MDE's thing, that if you come across a water service and it's still lead or galvanized, you must replace it. So all the water service lines on Pine, from Franklin to Nelson and down Nelson, will all be switched over to plastic too. So there's another 29 water services going to probably get changed out also in this project. And that's really all we have in there.
Any questions regarding the stormwater fund?
Jimmy, what's the 671% increase in the contingency?
So right now we have $48,588 in contingency. That will be reduced by the adjustments for the salary, and also will be changed to reflect the employee health insurance. So that number will be different, but that's basically projected revenue over the projected expenditures. So that's the only fund right now on the whole entire budget that have the number in contingency.
It's pretty good.
It's
And-
Because it's always been the
And I'm
opposite.
hoping that it will be enough to cover any of the wage study results impacts.
And also, I mean, it appears that stormwater is, well, never mind, this is another fiscal year. Sorry, never mind.
Any additional questions regarding stormwater? If not, Jamie, Natalie, thank you both. Jamie, thank you for working through those funds.
Well, I mean, don't forget Mary and Kelsey and Kate. I mean, I know you don't, but I gotta thank them too, because I'm not as computer guru as they are, but they've been very good in graciously helping me with my department stuff and making sure we get what I feel we need.
As you say, what is it, Team
The
Berlin
town,
or Team?
your paycheck comes
Team
from the
Berlin.
town of Berlin.
Yeah.
Our team.
All right, well, thank you for that, I appreciate it. Tim, we're 5 minutes behind on you, but let's move into electric.
Good, so I can pick you under the chin.
We got it. Thank you all, have a good night.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
I'm sure I'll see something tomorrow night.
All right, we'll kick it off with electric fund revenues on page 5 of your packet.
We're going back to page 5. And so electric fund revenues projections are done with help of Booth and Associates. We kind of, Tim basically discusses it over with them and gives them all the new services that will be connected to the town. And the projections are attributed to our cost for the future year and everything that goes inside of it. So there are several differences between the services provided, residential, commercial, general service, there's street lights and large general service. I'm not gonna go line by line, but as you see, there are increases overall in projections, but if we look at the purchase power costs later on, there are increases out there as well. So it's a reflection of revenue income, expenditures to purchase the power is what drive it.
Can you define general service? General service?
General service, Tim.
General service is, basically it's the, it's residential.
Everything that is not commercial.
General service is
I'm
basically
sorry,
everything that is not commercial. You also have general service demand. What that is, that's a commercial service that the demand is kind of out of the normal. They go to a different rate structure. So you have residential service, general service, and then you have general service non-demand, and then you have, commercial service.
It basically varies by the amount of electricity they draw. To
Consume.
simplify, if you're small and you, just like a house, so it goes to residential, and then a little bit larger would go to general, and then if you're a bigger commercial like food line, it would go to demand. So the bigger the square footage, the bigger they take, the different category you fall into, and the charge per kilowatt differs as well.
So when you say, piggyback on VP Burrell, so when you say general demand, is that large general service? Or is that something totally separate?
That's separate.
Separate.
So if someone's using three-phase power,
Yeah, like town hall, for example, this is a general service demand. It's because the consumption of electricity is more than just a normal commercial service, like say a shop downtown on Main Street, for example. So there's a certain tier when you hit 3,500 kWh consumption twice in a 12-month period, you automatically go to what's called general service demand, which is a different rate structure. Which we keep a really good eye on that. Melissa does. She watches that, and she'll actually notify me if she sees somebody, exceed that 3,500 threshold twice in a 12-month period.
Also, aren't the definitions for each one of these available online in the,
Yes.
Number
what's it called?
tariff, electric tariff. So once you're above the regular commercial, you get promoted to general service.
Promoted and
Which actually,
nicely phrased.
actually sometimes it works out better for the customer. We had a few, like over on Jefferson, for example, we noticed that they exceeded the 3,500 twice in a 12-month period. So then they went to a general service demand, which their first like 5,000 kWh is a certain rate, but anything over that, the rate actually drops. So it
So it's
actually
not-
saved them money.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a higher bill. It's-
Correct. It saved them money by going to a general service demand.
This refines how their bill is structured.
Yep.
Related to usage,
Correct.
that works. Thanks, Tim.
Service and material. Tim installs for new development services and also purchases generators that he installs the crew installs at corrections, I'm sorry, at the new, yes, I know, at the new developments. So we invoice this project and receive the amounts back. So basically what you see here, 2 to 3 phase transformers, electric services, wired, I guess, connected to the main grids, residential transformers, and then there is a underground bore services, underground primary and underground secondary. Those amounts are estimated to be received back from what electric department will do, and you will see that as expenditures later on the budget. Interest on delinquent, it's basically delinquent for non-payment of utility bills. There is a small amount for miscellaneous income such as recycling or other services. Contribution from reserve, 770,000. This is a number that you normally do not see on the electric fund, but going forward, we would like to rebudget ABB relay cabinet. It's on the fiscal 23 budget for 130 as a carry forward. There is a bucket truck for 250, which is a new asset. And power primary switch is a carry forward from fiscal 23 for 60,000. Then we have a rate study that is not going to be completed and finished in fiscal 23. It's a carry forward to fiscal 24 for 160,000. And Savage substation transformer refurbishment for 170 as a new line item here. So the total is 770,000. Below you will see bond loan receipts. It's a basically brand new idea and a brand new item that we discussed, and if we are successful, we will finance a project, AMI project for electric fund. So that is just something we brainstorming. We're going to reach out to AMP and PGM and see if they have available funds or financing program with very low interest, and potentially utilize 750 going forward to purchase smart meters for electric department. Then will be part of it will hopefully be included in the rate study, and hopefully we can go in front of Public Service Commission and recover that cost over a long period of time in the cost of the tower. But that's just an idea for some right now.
Explain, it's a fine time to explain the reason. We've discussed this before for the AMI meters. The system that we have to read the meters is outdated, and the technology is failing to the point where if they continue to fail, we'll be reading the meters on paper
Yes,
with
exactly.
a clipboard.
We've already lost 2 out of 6 readers, so we're down to 4 now.
And you can't get those styles again to be able to continue to
And
use it.
there's no sense in it at this point. The AMI, the radio read meters is where the technology is. So replacing what we have in existence now would just be a waste of money.
An improvement mechanism, we have in place a pilot system as of right now that's been with us for almost 10 years.
About 10.
So we do have already a smart
In
meters
the downtown area.
in the downtown area that been successful for 10 years. So it's proven itself that it's a very smart and efficient way to move the whole entire town to AMI metering.
But in order to accomplish that, along with those other capital projects and the stuff that we'll discuss, the main pathway that we have to move forward is through financing that. And the electric fund is a little more, has a layer of intricacy to it, and that's the Public Service Commission. So we have to structure these types of expenditures in a way that we realize the cost, and then we can go back to the Public Service Commission and advocate for that reimbursement. So.
Correct.
So if we don't get, if this this idea doesn't work, we'll then formulate a plan B for capital expense.
Well,
Well, if
Yeah,
this
we
idea
would
will
also
not
define
work, we will not recoup the 750 in the future over long term. So basically, electric department will carry the debt if we will move forward, acquire the debt, purchase the AMI meters,
And then-
install them, and then the idea is to ask the Public Service Commission to incrementally small amount over many years to build that back, to repay that to electric department. If that will not work, then we basically will have to cover the debt services from the electric department, electric fund.
In other words, I guess we can't wait for the rate study to determine if we move forward with the project. We kind of
Have to do it. Yeah.
all right, any additional questions for electric revenues? All right, let's move on to electric administration, please.
Just go over, no, don't go over the personnel, just go over the items that are significantly changed or new
Right.
items in the budget.
I'm going to go over the big ticket items, as I call it. If there's any question about any of the other smaller ones, just let me know and I'll answer. So right now, we're in administration, which is 5600, page 7. You'll see engineering electric matters, that's 110,000. That's basically for Booth Associates services. They handle financial, consultant with us, and also some engineering and that type of thing. They handle a lot of the Public Service Commission work that we do, in partnership with them. Legal electric services, 25,000. That is the utility attorney that we use out of Washington, D.C. She's involved in a lot of things. The rate case study, that's being carried over, 160,000. That's from the 2023 budget. And then if you move down through there, some of the other things aren't that bad. So I'll go over to page 8. If you look down at we're still at 5600, page 8. If you go down to Lyman meter training, 5621, you'll see $7,500 there. That's for 3 employees that are going to school. We have 2 apprentice linemen that are in school right now. And then we also have a meter technician that is in school. Then the meter, if you skip down there, you see meter school, $3,000. That's for our meter technician. That is an advanced meter school that is actually held in North Carolina. We normally send to him there every year. It's basically where you learn advanced metering. Because especially if we go to AMI, that takes a lot of other things that you have to do as far as reading the meters. That type of thing. And also our net meters, which are solar, you actually have to connect a computer to it, download the information from it, and then do comparisons for that. So it's all part of that training that goes into it. Then if you go down there, you'll also see emission certification and generation training. The $1,200, that's for our emission certification. They have to basically go take a test every 6 months to be certified to read the emissions that are coming out of the stacks of the generators. And then also the generation training, 2,500. That's for training that they attend, as far as the plant, that type of thing. And that's about it on that page. Then if you go over to page 9, in the contingency, which is 5789, you'll see a 15% increase in the contingency. I just wanted to put that in there, that's an increase. So overall, for the administration section of the budget, it's a overall increase of $13,447.
Out of 1.5 million, that's not bad.
Tim, I just have a quick question, please, or perhaps Mary. 1056005791 railroad licenses. Is this something totally separate from that we talked
It's
about?
included.
Okay, so that's going to be kind of.
The railroad licenses are essentially, well, we have to pay the railroad for our utilities to go over or under tracks.
And it just shows up in electric.
Right, because it's
Our-
primarily
It's
electric.
electric, yeah, water and sewer. I had to pull old documents to figure out how to break it down, but we did get it a couple years ago now. It's
Okay. As far as the power plant, first thing, the salaries up there, you'll see a new position. That's for a power plant apprentice. Casey, that works there now, has been here, Chelsea, what, 32 years?
At least.
Something like
She's
that?
been here for a while.
For a long time. He has a very important job. He makes sure that the generators are running when they're supposed to. Saves, as far as the rate, about $500,000 a year. That saves the ratepayers as far as electric rates by running the plant. I've been wanting to have a apprentice for that department because Casey is basically one person. If something happens to him, or retires or whatever, I really need to start succession planning on somebody behind him to learn. It'll take 2 to 3 years to learn everything about the plant. The person will have to go to school and that type of thing to be trained as far as the generation. So it's succession planning, basically. What it is.
Depth on the bench is always good.
What's that?
Depth on the bench is always good.
Yeah, right now Casey, he works alone.
Yeah, he works.
There's people that help him from time to time, and he works all by himself.
Yeah, normally, just so you know, prior to me coming to work at the town of Berlin, there used to be 5 employees in the plant. There's only been 1 in 12 years that I've been there. But before that, there was 5. So Casey, he basically takes care of all the maintenance on the engines, that type of thing. But any time that we peak shave, run the generators, we always have 2 people there in case something happens, just for safety aspect. Plus, we're looking at adding the other 2 new engines possibly, so that's even going to be more demanding about that. If you go down through there, the next big ticket item I see is it's under 5,200, which is fuel tank maintenance. Basically, that's $33,000. There's 3 10,000-gallon fuel tanks outside, which are full of number 2 low sulfur diesel. Those tanks are in dire need of being sandblasted and painted. They're starting to rust. They hold a lot of fuel. So I got a price, an estimate to have them painted, and that's what it is. It's to basically extend the life of the tanks that hold the diesel fuel that runs through the engines. So that, and with the new natural gas engine, and we're also looking at maybe possibly 2 more. At that point, it'll be less diesel fuel that we're using and transitioning to natural gas, away from the diesel fuel. And then also the next big thing I see is the power plant relay maintenance. That's $10,000. We have to hire a relay specialist to come in and do relay work in the power plant because we do not have any employees that are trained in that type of work. It's very sophisticated and takes some special equipment to do relay programming. So I'm done with that page. Moving on to page 11. If you go down under 5251, you'll see air compressors, engines, oil coolers. That's basically miscellaneous maintenance of the engines and parts and pieces that go on the different engines. You have like fuel injectors, fuel filters, that type of thing. That's what's included in that. If you go down to 5255, which I think Natalie already talked about this. This is a carryover from 2023. The relay cabinet replacement is $130,000, and there's a underground switch that we need to install in the substation. So that's a carryover from 2023. And then if you go down to 5620 under Public Service Commission, you'll see $17,000. That's for cost of doing business with the Public Service Commission. They're going to make sure they get paid.
They'll pay for the privilege of working with them.
Yep, so that's part of that. And then if you go down to 5630, for example, vehicle fuel, that there's a very little increase there. Now the diesel and natural gas fuel, which is 5631, there's an increase of about $4,000 there. And that's just the cost of fuel and natural gas as well. And then if you skip down from there and go down to 5796, RPS purchase power fees, it went from $262,588 to $264,840. Basically, that's the renewable energy portfolio that is required by the state of Maryland, that a certain percentage of your power sold has to come from natural resources, wind, solar, that type of thing. So there's a little increase in that. If you go over to page 12, For 5610, the overall increase was $440,989, which is about 12.86%.
That's purchase power increase.
Right. That's the purchase power. Okay. Page 13, the salaries of full-time employees, you actually see a decrease there, 14.15%. We had one of our employees retired that we actually did not replace that position. We kind of separated those duties of that employee and gave them to 2 other employees. So we're actually down 1 employee. Okay. So that's what that decrease is. And then also, if you go down to 5200, underground boiler services, $30,000. We'll actually be reimbursed that amount by the developer, because the developer pays for that type of work when they're installing new facilities. And then if you go over to page 14, I'll go down and just start at 5651, generator maintenance agreement, that $1,200, that's 113 Schoolfield Street. That's the generator maintenance agreement with Carter Machinery to basically maintain the backup generator for the building, for the shop. Then meter testing, we're actually mandated by the state of Maryland, Public Service Commission, to test a certain amount of meters each year. And then also the Public Service Commission inspection, where they inspect our meter department annually. And then you have what's called transformer oil testing. That is the large transformers at the substation. That's 2,500. We actually annually test the oil in that to see if there's any type of metal or that type of thing, or nitrogen, which helps prevent a catastrophe. You catch it ahead of time, basically, by doing that. If you go down to capital outlay, 5255, the 2 3-phase transformers, that is reimbursed by the developer, that's $75,000. The Altec AT41M bucket truck, that's $250,000. That is going to be replacing the small bucket truck, which is F550. It's a 2007, so it's 16 years old. The truck was actually used when we bought it. It's in need of a lot of repairs. We just replaced one cylinder alone that wasn't much bigger than that. That was $6,000 just for that one little cylinder. The truck that we're looking at buying is actually about 6 foot taller reach than the one we have now. This will enable us to work with the larger bucket trucks that we have. Plus, it'll also be used to work, like street lights, house services. It'll be more versatile to use different aspects. And then if you go down to the Ford F-150 meter truck, that truck was purchased at the same time that my truck was purchased in 2010. That was Augie's truck at that time. We purchased 2 of them at the same time. And that truck is in need of replacement. It's got over 80,000 miles on it. One of the driver's side door actually has a hard time closing it, so it's getting to the point where it needs to be replaced.
And you had sold 2 vehicles this year.
We sold 2, and then the one this is replacing, this will be sold also. So we're just replacing it with another vehicle. Residential transformers, that's $160,000. Oh, I'm sorry, let's back up here. Pad mount transformers, I actually called Natalie today about that. That $170,000, I thought that was too much. Because what we're starting to see is the price of transformers are starting to come down now. I guess they're starting to catch up from COVID. Like I had one vendor that wanted to, a certain transformer was $18,000, and I was able to get the same transformer at about 3,800.
Are they still on the 110, wait a minute, the 3 month, the
Year waiting list?
Years,
Yes.
a year, 120 months or whatever it is?
Yes, they still are. And it depends on what transformer it is, what size, whether it's 3-phase, 6-phase.
But they're a lot cheaper.
I mean, it's not 120 months, but you know.
Yeah, it's about 60 weeks now.
There you go,
A little over
60
a year.
You start running, if you're gonna wait that long.
So the price is starting to come back now, which is a good thing. So I asked Natalie if we could reduce that down to 40,000, which she agrees.
Down to 40?
Yeah, 40.
So
from
170 goes
170.
to
Which gives us a
40.
great advantage, because right now, we have a Savage substation transformer refurbished,
Yeah, I want to talk. about
advanced
that.
from the reserve. You want to talk about?
I will when I get down there.
That you changing the amount you're requesting
No,
before I say something?
not on that one.
Okay. So the substation being advanced from reserve, I'm gonna rerun that, we might not have to advance 170 because we're getting 130 right now from the head-mount transformers. So that's actually good news. And electric fund does have a contingency amount revenue projected over the expenditures, which I think would be enough to cover any wage study adjustments. And also will be adjustments from removing the one-time payment that will go back to the contingency as well. Sorry, go ahead, Tim. We are on the head-mount transformers
Right.
being reduced now. It's residential transformers reimbursed by
40.
developers.
Okay, the next one is residential transformers. Basically, that's new developments, which was 170,000. That is where the developer pays the town, the electric department to install the transformers, primary, secondary, and all that for like large developments that are coming into town. And then you have transclosure replacements. This is actually a 10-year plan that was put together by Booth Associates, which we do about 2 of these a year. We have probably 10 left on the system. It's where you take overhead transformers out of the cabinet, put head-mount transformers in. And we do that every year. We budget for that. Underground primary, that is developer reimbursed, $50,000. That's for new developments. Underground secondary, that's $25,000. That's reimbursed by the developer. Utility poles, we pay for that. The electric department, that's where we replace utility poles that are defective, or starting to rot, that type of thing. We do about 10 of those a year, so that's budgeted for that. And then if you go down to 52, okay, I haven't got that yet, I'm sorry. Savage substation transformer refurbished, I'd like to talk about that for a minute. That's $170,000. What that is basically the same thing that we just did at the power plant transformers. They come in, there's a company that, they come in, they drain all the wool out of them, they test it, that type of thing, they put new nitrogen blankets on it. This price also includes the painting of these transformers. These are the main transformers that serve the town. So basically, it will extend the life of the transformers. The transformers right now were installed in 1989, so that tells you how old they are. This is way overdue, something that needs to be done. And part of that cost in there is actually renting a mobile substation, because the substation will be down for 3 to 4 days. So the company brings in a mobile substation, we connect the existing substation behind the transformers that are going to be worked on. The mobile substation will carry the load of the town for 3 to 4 days. So nobody will be out of power during that time, because I know the town can't be out for that amount of time. So that is included in the price of this. So anyway, I'll move on from there. If you go down to 5257, bucket truck safety, that is the annual dielectric and structural testing of our vehicles. That's $12,000 a year. We're actually mandated to do that. So they have to be dielectric tested and structurally tested. If you go page 15, 5730, under small tools, you'll see $45,000. That also includes all the line material that goes on the overhead lines that you see, the poles, that type of thing. That price is included in that also. And then if you go to 5740, safety supplies and materials, you'll see an increase of $3,500. And that is for FR uniforms, rubber gloves, sleeves, work boots, safety glasses, everything that a lineman wears for protection to protect his safety from being hurt. And then on the power distribution, the overall increase was $1,354,124.
Tim, we had a discussion in the work session,
Okay,
and I think me and you
what page we on?
had a discussion, and you said that you need transformers. There are two different kinds. And you said the ones, that kind, you're gonna buy for $4,000 in transformer, and then there's a different kind that you're gonna buy for $17,000.
That's right here.
Right, so if you look at your budget, you have transformers, 10 of them at $4,000 for $40,000 on page 15.
Right.
And then the ones that are bigger and better for $17,000 on page 14.
Right.
Now you're telling me that they're going to be reduced to $4,000. Are we talking about still two different kinds, or we're talking about the same kind? I don't want to delete your fund.
They're what, like for example, pad mount transformers right there.
Right.
They are the same transformers, but the thing here, these are the ones we replace when they fall.
Okay,
basically in
look
the
at your
field.
page 15.
Okay.
See those transformers? You have 10 of them at $4,000 for $40,000?
Right.
Are they the same as the ones
They
in
are.
capital?
They are.
So is that a
this is the same,
duplication?
and as this is the same, that is duplication?
Correct.
So, I don't agree with you.
Okay.
And the reason, because we had
And what
this
is
conversation, and you persuade me that there were bigger transformers that you need. and
Well, there is.
smaller
There are
ones.
3-phase.
So there's still 4,000?
It depends on the KVA rating. You can go anywhere from a 25 to 167, depending on the size of the increases. Is that what you did now? Not all transformers are the same price.
Okay, so you have non-capital items of 10 of them at 4,000. And
Okay.
then you cut in your big transformers that you said they're gonna cost you 17,000 per piece to be 4,000. You skipping to buy big transformers, that's how I understand that.
How about you guys work that
Yeah.
out?
Disregard what I said before
It's
about
okay.
the reserve investment, because I think Tim and I
It's
will
okay.
go back.
Yeah, that's a
to the
discussion.
You guys take a look at it and then just send it out to the group. Do we have any questions? Anything else you want to highlight, Tim?
No, that's.
Any questions for Tim regarding the electric budget?
The items that are to be reimbursed, how does that work?
Well, let's say, here's a good example, Purnell Crossing North, that's the new development that's built out on Ocean City Boulevard.
Right.
When we go in to install primary to feed the transformers, then you have secondary that feeds from there to every townhome. And then also the streetlights that go in there, the developer has to reimburse the town for the cost of that. So they pay for the material, the labor, the vehicle charges.
We invoice them.
That's all.
So that
estimated.
doesn't show, so we pay this comes out of your, this is budgeted for the beginning of the year, and then you get that back.
That's correct.
And that's on the
That's
revenue side,
reflected
it's
in
budget.
Oh, that's what I was-
So
that's what I was
basically
making sure I understood that.
Budget, yes, budget neutral. If you look
Got
at
it.
page 5, under services,
Right here.
services and material,
It's not over yet, buddy.
3480.
a line item 3480,
Got it.
So that's what would be an invoice and paid back. So those big items that it says developer reimbursed, it's basically budget neutral.
Oh, I'm pathetic, because I just
Do
wrote
we
that
make a
note
profit
beside
on those
that.
items?
Sorry.
Get it late.
What's that?
What's that?
Go ahead, but I don't think.
Do we make a profit on those items?
Not allowed to.
No.
Not allowed?
No, all we can do is pass along the cost.
Well, he gets reimbursed for the usage of the equipment and the vehicles.
Okay. so-
But the cost of the actual material is what he pays, that's what gets
Right.
paid.
The service side, you don't have.
Yes,
But that's defined as well.
but again, it's personnel
Yes.
cost and the equipment wear and tear.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, we charge a certain rate for, like, say, the bucket truck, for example, is $75 an hour, dump truck's $50 an hour. So that's all broke down into the estimate, and then for every 10-foot of trench, for every foot of trench that we dig, it's $10 per foot. So that's billed to the developer.
And we also bill for personnel costs, but it is based on the actual
Benefits.
employee
Benefits.
hourly rate plus benefits.
We really handicapped there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not, it's not intended to be a profit-making
Yeah.
fund.
But shouldn't that reimbursement for staff be reflected in that?
It is.
It is.
It is.
It's part of that reimbursement line in the revenues.
Okay, keep in mind, the utility customers generally are residents, so
Yeah.
the cost, if we can recover the cost of that service, that's good, but those funds aren't profit making.
Let's say, for example, somebody builds a new home, for example, let's just say in a fill-in lot. The average price of a secondary service to be installed, which we're actually mandated by the Public Service Commission to install the service underground versus overhead. That's been pushed for many years, to underground all the power lines. So that average price of a underground service to a home is anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500. And it's based on the footage, whether it's a certain size wire, that type of thing. So it changes depending on what the materials are.
Any additional questions for Tim? Thank you for your work on the budget.
Thank you.
And Natalie and
Thank you.
everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to comments from the council. We'll start with Vice President Burrell.
I don't have a thing that you need to get your chair fixed.
I'm seeking any bids or proposals to eliminate my suite.
Yeah, that was,
We can all make it.
Yeah, sorry, we need to
That's gonna
lubricate
show
this
up on the
thing.
let's see if Cody can hit it with some deputy for it.
Thank you. Councilmember Hurd.
No comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols?
Yeah. No.
No comment? Okay, Councilmember Ward?
I don't have anything.
Councilmember Green?
Nothing.
All right. Up next, comments from the mayor. The only thing I have to say is thank you, everybody. This concludes our work sessions for the FY24 budget process. Yes, a lot of work has gone into this by everybody, but thank you. It's not unnoticed. So that concludes my comments, and now Vice President Burrell, you're up.
To adjourn.
All in favor? All opposed? Let's go. Oh, my God. Now, I'm not speaking. I'm sore.
That's gonna show up on the time.
I just used